That's right, Jeff Statsky. Just 4 years after leaving town to make it as a songwriter and musician on the East Coast, Mr. Hot himself, Jeff Statsky, has returned. Locals are simply stunned that Mr. Ambition himself would deign to move back to Pennington, the town he once said, quote, wasn't big enough for his music. Tuffy's Bar is even planning a welcome home party for the would-be Bob Dylan.
We got a nice cushioned stool for his precious little East Coast ass.
Hey, Jeffy boy, we got the radio on. We're still waiting to hear that big song of yours. Where is it?
Local business owners say Statsky might have just as hard a time finding work here in Pennington as he did when he was trying to be a dainty little songsmith in Coolsville.
Oh, sure, I could set him up with a job, no sweat. Oh, wait, come to think of it, we don't have any openings right now for tambourine-shaking pansies who got dick-slapped by the big city.
This is the Onion News Network. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. Welcome to the program here, the live Saturday edition of the show. The phones are open. If you want to join us, you can do that. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here with you in the studio, it's Ian.
And Biden fell down.
Mark. Yeah, I saw some video about that,
Yeah,
I guess.
he apparently is a poor bicyclist.
He's also like nearly 80 years old. But yeah, when was the last time he was on a bicycle? I wonder.
I don't know.
Because apparently he can't stay steady on a bike while standing still, right?
I mean, he stumbles over his words constantly. I can't imagine him not stumbling, while riding a bicycle.
The cruelty of whatever press agent decided to put this guy on a bike, I don't understand. He didn't prove that he was young, that's for sure.
You know the bicycle meme, right? You've seen this on the internet.
Yes, the bicycle meme is somebody has a stick in their hand while they're riding a bike. They shove it in the spokes and they say, "Why did the Republicans ruin our day on January 6th?" Right, like it's something completely irrelevant.
Something
to the
you
fact
do to
that
yourself.
Right,
Yeah. Or inflation's so high. Psst, why did Putin do this to us? That kind of thing. Yeah.
It was one of the questions I wish I had time to ask Ron Paul when we had him on a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, that would have been a good question.
Because he was known in 2012, when he would have been like 75 or 76 or something like that, for being a regular bicyclist, that he was out there riding every single day. At that age seems really amazing and unusual. And I was just wondering if he kept that habit up into his
I don't know,
80s.
but I did recently see somebody post on the social media that Ron Paul, the greatest president we never had, still bicycling at 70 whatever however old he is. So I don't know if that was a recent thing or if somebody was just making fun of the fact that Biden can't bicycle, but Ron Paul can.
I would hope that he still is. What else is there to say about the Biden bike thing? I mean, he's really old.
Yeah.
He should be in under some kind of care rather than out and about doing things.
Yeah, I think the Democratic Party really showed their hand as to what a bunch of fascists they are when they decided to scuttle Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is doing just fine, I've got to say. They scuttled his campaign. He was obviously going to win. Everybody drops out inside of a couple of days, and suddenly Joe Biden's the front runner. And, whoever it was, whatever it takes to beat Orange Man. I think Sanders would have beaten Trump in the conditions of the pandemic.
Well, look, I'm not one to tell you who you should choose for your ruler. I specifically don't want one. But if you're going to choose one, perhaps don't choose a senile one.
I don't want one old or young. And Sanders, by the way, is 80 years old, so he's no spring chicken.
No,
either.
he's not. But I'll bet you he'd do better on the bike. That's
Colonel
all I'm
Sanders.
saying. So when you start getting into your 80s, like there's a distinct difference. I was just speaking to a neighbor today, and she's 87. She's out walking her Labrador. Not exactly the smallest dog in the world.
Yeah, sure.
And she's doing just fine. She's got her little tennis shoes on. She's out doing her thing. And there's those that are younger than that are in wheelchairs and nursing homes and can't get up for themselves.
Do you remember when the Democrats were all crying about how all of the presidents have been old white men, and then Obama got elected, and then as soon as they have another chance at an election, it's senile old white men again.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that comes down to a habit of exercise, right? That lady's probably been exercising her whole life, and that has propelled her through. And then those other people are probably couch potatoes who, that's where they end up. So if you want to weigh in, 603-283-6160, you can join us here. There's a pretty big story that hit yesterday, and you guys didn't cover it last night, Mark, so I definitely want to get to it tonight, and that is the update on Julian Assange. He has been now ordered to be extradited from the UK. But it's not over yet.
It's lousy.
He can still appeal the order. According to the Washington Post, the British government ordered his extradition to face espionage and hacking charges in a country to which he has never visited. Julian Assange has never set foot in the United States.
It's insane.
And just to zoom out for our listeners, my opinion on this whole bit is it is not a crime to reveal crime.
Indeed.
Right. So that's what Julian Assange is accused of, is leaking video and perhaps participating in acquiring and encouraging the leak and some things like this. So it's, I don't know, what I would call being a reporter.
Yeah.
Journalism.
Right? Journalism.
Reporting the truth.
Trying to get the journalism out, trying to write the story. Have reporters ever helped a potential source get their stuff and put everything together? Sure they have. They do that all the time. That's what their job is. And
they want to get the story.
I don't know why they decided that Julian Assange was the one they could go after. All kinds of stuff has been leaked up to this point. But
he was the person, the face of WikiLeaks. There are obviously other people involved in WikiLeaks.
Sure. It continues on.
But yeah.
What I want to know is, where the hell are all the other journalists sticking up for this guy?
Almost everybody
sticking up for journalism.
Almost every journalist you'll ever see who gets a chance. So we don't use our platforms in that manner, right? Like Ian and I can, but journalists generally should be reporting the news, not their opinions on what's happening with Julian Assange.
I don't even see it on like social media for journalists, right? I see a bunch of other people, like activists. A bunch of activists are like, yeah, this is wrong. We shouldn't do this. What I don't see is a bunch of other journalists going, oh my God, this is horrific for journalism.
Right. I don't consider the Assange situation a bellwether for America. I consider it an indication. Ladies and gentlemen, whatever the Constitution and whatever the Bill of Rights ever stood for, it doesn't stand for crap now. I'm going to say it again. Whatever the Bill of Rights ever stood for, it doesn't stand for crap now. If Julian Assange can be brought to a country to which he has never been in order to stand trial for acting like a journalist, sorry, there is no defense for this. And my new hero, Ian Freeman, the recipient of the Freedom of Speech Award, just within the last 7 days, used his opportunity when he received that speech to talk about Julian Assange and other people who have been arrested for their freedom of speech. Sure. So that's, this is it. This is it. America is good for nothing as far as the land of the free stuff goes anymore. Yickety-yackety, we're the freest place. You're nothing like that. You're like Texas, talking about being free and not being free. That's all.
Yeah, as I pointed out in my speech, there's the people that are out there celebrating free speech in our business, for instance. They're not really crossing any lines. They're staying within the bounds of what is considered to be acceptable. Because it's completely acceptable to get on the air and say, I think Democrats are a bunch of jerks.
Sure.
I think Republicans are poo-poo heads. Call each other
back
names
and forth
all day long. Insult the president, insult the Trump, insult all these other people. And that's standard fare. And I understand that some parts of the world that's forbidden, right? Like in was it Thailand? If you insult the king, they'll behead you or something like that, or you go to prison.
Potentially. I don't know that it's
North
happened.
Korea.
Yeah, so I mean, there's definitely some places on the planet that are worse, and I'm not saying that people in this plot of land, on this plantation, shouldn't be grateful that we do have a larger area of free speech, but again, free speech is not real in the United States. It's
Freedom
an
of the press
illusion.
is so important, the founders decided to put it in the First Amendment.
Yeah. And it's been whittled away and whittled away.
And as you pointed out in your words that you had to be read by Mark because, they wouldn't
It's
let you
too
go.
dangerous to accept the Freedom of Speech Award.
It's the, how did you put it? It's the unpopular speech that needs to be protected.
That's right. I think, was it Jefferson who pointed that out a long time ago?
Yeah, certainly not Ian's idea.
No, none of my ideas are original, that's for sure. I'm just here to propagate what I consider to be the good ones. The number is 603-283-6160. A little bit more here about what's going on with Julian Assange, because as you know, he's been essentially imprisoned for the last decade of his life.
Long time.
At least, since he was in London in the Ecuadorian embassy for several years, ultimately being grabbed out of there and taken to a London prison where he's been sitting for a few more years. Just waiting to be taken to the United States. More coming up.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. Julian Assange is still sitting in prison in the UK awaiting extradition to the United States to face something like 170 years behind bars.
Is there such a thing as dition instead of extradition?
How about addition?
I just don't know what's extra about it.
We're going to give you more about that particular story.
Why is it addition but subtraction?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Good question. English language can be a little confusing. Also, I want to make sure you know about Bitcoin.com. You can go to Bitcoin.com and click Get Started at the top of the page, and that's where you can learn about Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. And boy, is it maybe a good time to start doing that, considering the price of Bitcoin has now gone below $20,000 today. It was below, I think, $18,000
on sale.
When I saw it earlier. It's been on sale and continuing to go down in price. And, of course, a lot of people
makes me want to sell my car.
Are not so happy about it. But that's the way it goes. Sometimes,
I sold mine. I'm glad they've gotten rid of it, too.
Sometimes number go up, sometimes number go down. But over time, the price of Bitcoin has trended upwards. In fact, it's at right now at just around $19,000 per coin is still higher than it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, all these noobs are freaking out because they bought high. Maybe they didn't buy it 65 grand or whatever, but they bought it 50
or 40 or whatever. Yeah.
So let me tell a quick story about a friend. This was probably 2017.
You have friends?
I do.
Damn.
He was a jiu-jitsu friend, and he was quite good. He bought at 20,000.
Mm-hmm.
Back
at the peak
when Bitcoin was at its peak.
Then peak.
The then peak of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And now, just imagine, ladies and gentlemen, how smart he looked when Bitcoin hit 60,000 earlier this year, or whatever, however long it's been. I'm just saying,
But he didn't feel so smart, I imagine, after buying at 20,000 and then the price crashed to $3,000 within a few months after that.
Right.
That hurts.
It does hurt,
right?
And it hurts now for anybody who bought at 50 and it's gone down to 20.
Yeah,
I understand, but all I'm trying to say is if you buy when it's hot, expect to get the worst of it. If you buy when it's cold, expect to get the best of it. At this point, every time I've bet against Bitcoin, BTC, I have lost.
Mm-hmm.
Just letting you know.
Yeah. No, we don't know what the future holds.
We don't.
But this could be the end.
It could go to zero.
Yeah, it could.
I don't mind telling you that, but I don't think it's going to.
I don't think it's going to either. But you can go and learn about it. That's what you got to do. You got to get the basics
also,
down.
big banks that are investing, hedge funds, huge monetary organizations that are invested in cryptocurrency, likely the ones who orchestrated this crash, likely so that they can pick it up cheap, likely so that because they expect it to go up tremendously in the future, they're holding it down as much as they can, and then at some point it buoys up. But hey, big organizations have bought into this. It's not speculative anymore.
And that wasn't happening 5 years ago.
No.
Not to mention the infrastructure that exists. There's more infrastructure for cryptocurrency now than ever before in the existence of it.
And the development continues, of course. You can go to Bitcoin.com, click Get Started at the top of the page. You'll get the basics there. And you really ought to. You don't want to just get into something without doing some research first. So go to Bitcoin.com, click Get Started. You want the latest news headlines? They've got those too over at news.bitcoin.com. In fact, Dodger is on the line in Michigan, and he wants to talk about the world of crypto. Something's going on with one of the top crypto exchanges. There's some drama you wanted to comment on. Go ahead.
Yes. Well, apparently, with a lot of sell-off of Bitcoins, the Kraken CEO has seen a huge uptick of essentially woke activists in his company. And he says it's a very small number of people, but it's disrupting business. And he's offered to pay them 4 months' salary to leave.
I heard about this through the grapevine, and I actually pulled up a story a few days ago where the New York Times is trying to rake this guy across the coals.
Isn't Michigan an at-will employment state?
I don't think this is happening in Michigan. This is happening.
He's calling from
You're calling from. I'm sorry. Okay.
I think Kraken is. I think they moved to Wyoming. Am I right about that, Dodger?
I don't know the details. I know I watched an interview, and they tried accusing him of not being diverse, and he said, "Well, I've got employees over 70 different countries, speak 50 different languages, and these roughly 20 or 30 woke activist employees have essentially disrupted his business." And so his solution is, "Hey, I'll pay you to leave.
Buy him out."
And
according to this search, Kraken is founded in 2011 with its home base in San Francisco.
2011.
Yeah,
I didn't realize they were that. That's ancient.
Yeah, but they're in
Bitcoin days.
They're in Wyoming now.
I heard that they opened up maybe they only have an office in Wyoming.
Yeah, but they're using the banking laws there.
Yeah.
How's that?
I think they're trying to become a bank in the state of Wyoming because Wyoming has the most friendly cryptocurrency statutes.
If they're in a state that's what they call at-will employment, then they can just let people go whenever. And
I suspect San Francisco is not one of those places.
I suspect it is not.
You'd be surprised it is.
Really?
Yeah, to my knowledge it is, because so is Seattle, Washington. And I was surprised of that as well when I lived there.
Well, to answer your question, Captain, yes, Michigan is an at-will employer state. I know because I've had to let employees go in the past. So
yeah, and I was surprised that Seattle was for the 22 years that I lived there. As one of the only sort of freeing things was that you really never had to give 2 weeks notice. You should, to be courteous. You don't want to burn that bridge. But if you want to leave for a better job or a different job or that kind of a thing, you don't have to do anything.
Yeah, I've never. The guy's name is Jesse Powell. He's the founder and CEO of Kraken, which is one of the top crypto exchanges on the planet. Certainly in the United States, it's one of the top. Maybe second to the top or something like that. It's big. And I saw some of his comments several months ago that I thought were just so great. I had to follow him on social media. He was pointing out that if you keep your crypto on exchanges, that is a really bad idea.
Oh yeah.
And this guy runs an exchange.
Yeah.
And he was telling people, I cannot protect you. If the government comes for your account, there's nothing I can do about it.
Right.
They have to follow all the stupid government rules.
Yeah, and they did. They shut mine down just because my email address is freetalklive.com.
Yep, they shut me down too, a couple years ago, and that's because the federal agents were coming into their offices, I'm sure.
Man, if I'm working for Kraken though, and I'm not one of these people he's offering this, severance pay for, I might start acting just a little bit woke, get the offer, take the money, toss it into Bitcoin, and then go get another job somewhere else.
Well, he's offering it to all of his employees. So, I guess he's calling it the sunset option, right off into the sunset type of thing. And just real quick, based on the interview that I did see with him, he is a self-described libertarian, and he certainly sounds principled because he describes sound money and autonomy and essentially all the things that I expect a libertarian to talk about.
Yeah, that's why I followed him on social media, because he seemed as principled as you could get as far as a libertarian is concerned. Just he's frustrated that he's in this industry where he's got to bow down to the state in order to stay in business. Thanks, Dodger, for the call tonight, and maybe we'll get to the story here since he called in. Basically, we'll treat it as a request. We do take requests here on Free Talk Live. That's basically the point of the show. It's open phones. You can call in about any topic that you want and have a national radio audience listening to you and maybe calling in with their opinions. The number here is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. You can join us on the radio. Wokeness in the workplace. Have you experienced this? It's Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odyssey, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off, now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odyssey started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odyssey. You can watch live or anytime on our Odyssey channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odyssey today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, D.C., I'm Benji Haya with your Week in Review. A week in which Americans were told their democracy came dangerously close to catastrophe during the attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6th last year, according to the Congressional Committee investigating the assault. In the second and third of a series of hearings, lawmakers also highlighted what they said was Donald Trump's relentless effort to pressure then Vice President Mike Pence to refuse to count the Electoral College votes and instead declare Mr. Trump the winner of the 2020 election, as his supporters stormed the halls of Congress. In his testimony, Mike Pence's former advisor, Judge Michael Luttig, said doing so would have caused a constitutional crisis.
Had Vice President Pence obeyed the orders from his president, that would have been tantamount to a revolution.
Donald Trump insists the investigation is a pitiful last-ditch effort to deceive the American public. More hearings are expected later this month. Meanwhile, current US President Joe Biden has pledged another $1 billion in military aid to Ukraine, and the UK is promising to train thousands of Ukrainian troops following Prime Minister Boris Johnson's second surprise visit to Kiev for a meeting with President Volodymyr Zelensky, having in April become the first leader of a G7 country to travel to the Ukrainian capital since Russia's invasion. It follows a trip earlier in the week by French President Emmanuel Macron, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi, a move that's paved the way for Ukraine to potentially join the European Union. On Friday, the European Commission officially recommended that Ukraine be granted candidate status to the 27-member bloc. Ira Spitzer has more from Brussels.
Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the EU's executive branch, announced the recommendation that Ukraine be allowed to start the process of becoming part of the EU.
Ukraine has clearly demonstrated the country's aspiration to live up to European values and standards.
The Commission also recommended candidate status for Moldova, who, like Ukraine, applied to join the EU shortly after Russia invaded Ukraine in February. It didn't recommend candidate status, however, for now, to Georgia.
Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has criticized what he calls mad and thoughtless sanctions against his nation imposed following the invasion of Ukraine. He used his address at an economic conference in St. Petersburg to implore Russian businesses to keep working in the country. In other news, UK Home Secretary Priti Patel has approved the extradition of Julian Assange to the United States. The founder of WikiLeaks is wanted by US authorities on espionage charges and has been fighting extradition for years. He has 14 days to appeal the decision. His wife Stella vows to spend every waking hour fighting to free her husband. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. You can bring up whatever you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here tonight, it's Ian.
The Reverend Captain Kickass.
And Mark Edge.
And also, don't forget you can join us online anytime you want. Head over to our social media site at social.freetalklive.com. And that is where you can create an account. It's free to do that, by the way. You create an account. When you do create the account, you have to put in a little blurb about why, because we get a bunch of spammers. And so I figured, all right, well, we're going to approve accounts rather than just let anybody in, because if you just let the spammers in, they just start spamming the place up. And the spammers don't know how to answer that question. So,
are you a spammer?
It's not, are you a spammer? It's like, why do you want to join the server?
I see.
And they'll just, their answers are obviously, they don't know what they're joining. So if
Sure.
you just put
They don't
anything
care.
in about, I like the radio show or Free Talk Live or something about that, then that's enough to get you in.
Okay.
Over at social.freetalklive.com. Otherwise, you get the freedom to express yourself there that you will not find on places like Facebook or Twitter. It's not a big corporation. It's our server. We run the software. It's Mastodon, which means it is federated. It's connected with thousands of other Mastodon instances all around the planet. Once again, it's social.freetalklive.com. So I want to get back to Julian Assange, but since our caller brought up the Kraken CEO, Jesse Powell is his name, and this guy's causing some controversy because, well, he's not just letting the woke crowd take over his company. And so here's a story here that's outing him, exposing him in the New York Times, written just a few days ago by Ryan Mack and David Yaff-Bellany. Jesse Powell, a founder and chief executive of Kraken, the world's largest, or rather one of the world's largest, cryptocurrency exchanges, recently asked his employees, quote, if you can identify as a sex, can you identify as a race or ethnicity?
I don't know why that's a crazy question.
It's a great question.
I mean, why not?
I mean, you can identify as a religion, right?
Mhm.
You seem to have the choice of that. I know plenty of folks who have converted to one religion or another, even though they weren't.
Well, you're not necessarily born a religion. You're kind of born you're certainly born a sex. And I don't think anybody's going to argue with that. So they might argue with the term gender, but they're not going to argue with the term sex.
Well, see, in the comedy world, oftentimes people will confuse jokes about a couple of religions specifically for anti-Semitism, right? You make fun of the Jewish faith in the correct way, people will call you an anti-Semite. Ask Doug Stanhope about that one. He's gotten enough flack about that. But so, there's a general perception that there is a Jewish ethnicity, a people, but the Jewish faith is a religion that you can convert to. So, which one is it?
Sure.
I'll field that question. I'll just go ahead and say that I know it gets Whoopi Goldberg in some trouble, touching on this particular issue, but I'm just going to go ahead and say that Judaism's a religion. Like you can be born Jewish as far as an ethnicity goes, but it's just you identifying as something. If it is not obvious to me, right? If you've got when I went to temple with my friend, who is now the godfather of my child. Go ahead and call me an anti-Semite, okay? The godfather of my child I used to go to temple with, he said, hey, don't tell the little old ladies in whatever their version of the fellowship hall is downstairs what your last name is under any circumstances. Just don't tell them, right? So my last name, Edge, English name, pretty clearly. And it's like, just don't tell them. And what he was doing was he's playing a joke on the little old ladies because they're going to do whatever it takes to find out what your last name is because they don't know what your ethnicity is.
Right.
They can't look at me and tell whether or not I'm Jewish. All right? So I'm at temple. That's a pretty good indication. And they want me to have the right last name. Now, a last name isn't an ethnicity.
No.
It's not. Ask the Irish.
Indeed.
You can't tell. So yeah, that's my point here is that if the people who are members of the community cannot tell without getting your last name, it's not a real ethnicity.
My position on it has always been one of religion. Now, I make fun of all the religions as much as I possibly can because, it either riles people up or it makes them laugh. Now, I don't really care what anybody chooses to believe. As long as they're not forcing it on anybody else, believe away, whatever it is you believe. But as a comedian, I feel obligated to make fun of your religion specifically, whatever that may be.
So Jesse Powell also questioned their use of preferred pronouns and led a discussion about, quote, who can refer to another person as the N-word, unquote, as he told workers that questions about women's intelligence and risk appetite compared with men's were, quote, not as settled as one might have initially thought. unquote. In the process, Mr. Powell, a 41-year-old Bitcoin pioneer, ignited a culture war among his more than 3,000 workers, according to interviews with 5 Kraken employees, as well as internal documents, videos, and chat logs reviewed by the New York Times. Some workers have openly challenged the chief executive for what they see as his quote-unquote hurtful comments.
Well, see, that's not a challenge. A challenge would be, let's look at the facts here, and let's look at what his flawed thinking is. This is... right? This is crying about somebody bringing up stuff.
Others have accused him of fostering a hateful workplace and damaging their mental health. Dozens are considering quitting, said the employees, who did not want to speak publicly for fear of retaliation. Now, we just heard what brought this up was a caller had called in saying that the CEO is offering all employees the ability to take a walk and quit their jobs with a, what was he say, 4 week or 4 months?
I sounded like a lot.
It was a bunch of weeks of pay, full pay. I mean, a severance package, basically. And that's probably a lot more than what's going on in the rest of the industry right now. I don't know if y'all heard, but Coinbase, which is probably the one exchange that is larger than Kraken
18%
in the United States. Yeah, they're cutting like
employees?
1,000 jobs or something like that. There's other companies. Crypto.com is cutting like 18 or 20%. Uphold, I don't know if they're cutting, but there's a bunch of them.
Hard enough to do business and make money. And if you've got your employees worried about which bathroom to use, you're never going to do it.
Yeah.
Because they're not worried about the proper task. This reminded me of an article I read a few months ago. And it was, essentially states that if you consider LGBT, what that is, and how many of Generation Z, that's my son's generation. I don't think we should call it that. I think we should call it iGen or Zoomers. I prefer those terms.
Okay.
So how many Zoomers as a percentage identify as LGBT? Now, these are people born, human beings born between 2011 and 1996 and 2010. So Jack is on the tail end of that and about to be on Gen Alpha, which is a terminology that is come up with based on Gen X being Gen X, and then they said Gen Y, and then changed that to millennials. Then Gen Z, changed that to Zoomers.
Okay.
Gen Alpha is, we just don't know what
They're
it is
going back
yet.
around to the beginning. Okay.
Right. So we'll call them what they are. But by the time you look at Generation Z, Zoomers, at 1996 to 2010, you go to Generation Beta at 2026 to 2040.
Okay.
That's not that far from now, right? Like 4 years from now, the first beta generation will be born. That generation will be 80% LGBT if you follow the trend line.
Wow.
So Gen
Z
is 20%, 21%.
Okay. And do we have numbers on the next generation?
Well, we don't know yet because
they're too young.
They're not identifying.
What was Gen X?
Gen X is 4.2%.
Wow.
Oh, that's a pretty steep increase.
In millennials, there's a lot of LGBT at 10.5%. So if you follow this trend line, basically America ceases breeding. This is it, ladies and gentlemen. This is all for Chink. It's gone. And by the way, the Mennonites will never fall.
Sure.
At the speed at which they're currently having kids, all of America is going to be Mennonite by 2100.
The number here is 603-283-6160.
Back to the Stone Ages, baby.
More about wokeness in the workplace. And if
radio's coming back.
If you've experienced this and you want to join us here, you can. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. This is Free Talk Live.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com. Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. Phones are open, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. We're talking about the woke workplace, something that seems to be disturbingly becoming more common. One cryptocurrency exchange is pushing back, and the CEO has basically said to his employees, hey, if you don't like it here, go ahead and leave. We'll give you 4 months. I checked the story. It's 4 months of pay if you will just take
it seems like a lot
your crazy wokeness out the door and never come back.
My experience with severance pay is that you usually get like 2 weeks for every year of service like that you've been employed by. So that's a lot.
That's a ton.
Also, for whatever reason, I just imagined Jesse Powell, the CEO, right? Yep. I just imagined him walking around the office going, "My ninja," right? Because you remember because it was uncool to say the other version of the N-word that is popular in pop culture that I don't know that I can say on the.
That ends in the letter. I suspect you cannot.
It ends in the letter A.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, but then that wasn't cool. So then somehow the word ninja got culturally appropriated. Perhaps is the right term for that. And so everybody's like, "My ninja."
I have never heard this.
Oh yeah, it was like there was a time.
Can you give me a time frame on this?
Oh,
your decade?
Mid 2000s.
Okay,
2005 or so.
Okay,
yeah, in that pocket. But yeah, so it got co-opted, and so I just had this vision of Mr. Powell walking around the office doing something that can't really be construed as PC, but also not illegal.
Right.
Right.
It's going to upset the right people. Let's go to Major Payne. He's on the line in Michigan. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
You guys are having too much fun. Captain, my samurai son. Hey. Wait.
Major.
Anyway, I heard one of them quick news blips that they like to drown out quick as they bring them up. There was a whole herd of cattle ended up dead for no apparent reason.
From the heat.
No, well.
Or was it?
Or that's yeah, right. Black Angus do roast in the sun. We will give you that. But you usually got to put coals under them. Anyway.
Where was this? Where did the cattle go dead?
I don't know. Like I said, it was just one of them quick
like a
news
TikTok
clips that you hear at like 6:30 in the morning and you never hear again.
I haven't looked into it. I've only seen like memes or people responding to it. So what I gathered from what I saw was that there's a whole bunch of cattle that mysteriously died, but they were also given some sort of a thing. I don't know if it was supposed to be a COVID-related thing or if it was some sort of an experimental, cattle vaccine for something else. I don't know, but apparently, supposedly these cattle were given something, and then they all died, and they're blaming it on the heat.
Well, okay, so I'm the only one here that was raised on a farm, and I'll say this. I looked at that video, and those cows their legs were splayed out, and their guts were distended. They looked very much like they'd been out in the sun for some time, and that they all died at the same time.
You think it was a disease?
I don't think so.
Aliens?
All right.
Well, yes, that's exactly what I think it is. Yes, it's aliens.
Legal or illegal?
Circle there?
What's that, Major?
I say, can I try to bring this full circle
Yeah,
here?
go ahead.
I don't know if you guys are familiar with the TV series Yellowstone, but there's a rancher out there that this thing is based upon, who basically has a ranch aside of Rhode Island, 5 generations, right? And everybody's trying to take it away from him. Because there's one line that really stood out, Kevin Costner spit out. He says, if you had all the money in the world, this is what you'd want to buy. That's leverage. So he's been battling these bastards for generations. He swore to his father he'd never give up an inch of the land. Well, in the second season, about 4 episodes in probably, there was a dude that was after everything he had, and if you're going to bankrupt a rancher, what do? You kill his herd.
Yep.
So he had a private airport and some airplanes, and he flew poison clover and dropped it and killed the herd.
Oof.
All right, now Bill Gates is trying to take out all this land out west so he can feed us all lentils and beans. And when you got an uppity rancher that won't give up his stake, how are you going to take him out? Kill his herd.
Thank you, Major, for the call tonight. Appreciate hearing from you.
So this would be that would be the sort of thing that these eco-terrorists would do. Are you familiar with these folks? The ones that'll go and try to stop a nuclear power plant by blowing it up and doing a bunch of dumb stuff. That does sound like the kind of thing that they would justify in their own mind. The ones that say, hey, these animals are victims of the oppression of something or other. Not entirely sure what. And, let's go ahead and kill them for their own good. Because these animals were all killed at once. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Feel free to speculate. The number is 603-283-6160. I want to say thanks, by the way, to Nathan and Steve Lemansky, who are supporters of Free Talk Live's AMP Patreon. You can, if you like the show, if you like what we do here, talking about the ideas of freedom every single night, 7 nights a week on broadcast radio and online, of course, you can join at amps.freetalklive.com for as little as $5 a month. Which you can do that. Nathan, in fact, is silver level, and Steve is gold, which means Steve's doing 10. So thank you guys both over at AMPS.
Guys, thanks.
Yeah, amps.freetalklive.com. You get a few perks, get some benefits from signing up. The big help is that you help us spread the ideas of freedom. So thank you for that. Again, it's amps.freetalklive.com. Somebody else trying to spread the ideas of freedom is the CEO of Kraken, one of the largest crypto exchanges in the world. And I got to say, before they kicked me off, due to federal government meddling, it was my favorite. I really enjoyed being on that exchange. But Powell unveiled a 31-page culture document outlining Kraken's, quote, libertarian philosophical values, unquote, and commitment to, quote, diversity of thought, unquote, and told employees in a meeting that he didn't believe they should choose their own pronouns. The document and a recording of the meeting were obtained by the Times.
If on one hand you support diversity of thought, and on the other hand you say you don't believe that people should be choosing their own pronouns, then, well, I mean, that you can choose to ignore what he has to say. He's saying, look, I've got an opinion, and you should have your own.
Sure.
And that's fine.
Those who disagree could quit, said Powell, and opt into a program that would provide 4 months of pay if they affirm they will never work at Kraken again. Employees have until Monday to decide if they want to take part. And then on Monday, Christina Yee, a Kraken executive, gave those on the fence a nudge, writing in a Slack post that the, quote, CEO, company, and culture are not going to change in a meaningful way. She said further, quote, if someone strongly dislikes or hates working here or thinks those here are hateful or have poor character, work somewhere that doesn't disgust you, she told them. And they're offering them 4 months of severance pay to walk away when other companies are just cutting jobs.
Yeah, that's one of the most outstanding and honorable things I think I've ever heard a company do.
Right.
And I've worked for a bunch of companies. Your listeners who've been listening to me for a while, they might know I've had a lot of jobs over the course of my 50 years on this planet. There was a period of time when I was going through like the job of the month club in my like early 20s when I would just take a job, be like, nope, this sucks, I'm out. Take another job. Nope, this sucks. I'm out. Right, and I would
in the right job markets. That's fine to do.
Yeah, and it was, and I was young, so like I was just trying to find something that I could tolerate, and I ended up doing a whole bunch of stuff that I really couldn't. But my point is that I've never seen any company do this.
Well, and they're obviously doing really well. I've also pulled up a blog post from their official blog at blog.kraken.com where they say not only are they not firing people, like you're seeing a bloodbath in the crypto industry right now. I mean, Bitcoin's price is down, and a bunch of companies grew faster than they could sustain, and they're cutting like 20% of their staff. Kraken's hiring 500 people in the next year. So, he's saying here that they don't intend to make any layoffs, unlike these other companies. So that's a good sign for them. If you want to weigh in here, you can. The number is 603-283-6160. And so anyway, the article goes on to talk about kind of the history of Powell, and apparently he worked at Mt. Gox, which is the original,
from the old school.
Yeah, that's way back. We're talking in 2011 is when he was working there. It was one of the first, if not the first, cryptocurrency exchange. Powell then founded Kraken in 2011 with somebody named Tan Liu, who still sits on the company's board. The startup operates as a crypto exchange where investors can trade digital assets. They had their headquarters in San Francisco, but is now largely a remote operation. As we discussed earlier, they have made some sort of a move to Wyoming. Wyoming had passed a few years, maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, they passed a package.
Seems like more than that, but maybe not.
Crypto legislation, basically, that has made Wyoming the most business-friendly for crypto places in the United States. And so companies like Kraken decided it would be a good idea to relocate, their head offices, or at least some portion of their business there, so they can take advantage of those rules. There's more coming up here, and you can join us. We're talking about the woke workplace, or in this case, what appears to be an anti-woke workplace. More coming up here in moments. You can share your thoughts. It's Free Talk Live.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover brings her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, D.C., I'm Benji Haya with your Week in Review. A week in which Americans were told their democracy came dangerously close to catastrophe during the attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6th last year, according to the Congressional Committee investigating the assault. In the second and third of a series of hearings, lawmakers also highlighted what they said was Donald Trump's relentless effort to pressure then Vice President Mike Pence to refuse to count the Electoral College votes and instead declare Mr. Trump the winner of the 2020 election, as his supporters stormed the halls of Congress. In his testimony, Mike Pence's former advisor, Judge Michael Luttig, said doing so would have caused a constitutional crisis.
Had Vice President Pence obeyed the orders from his president, that would have been tantamount to a revolution.
Donald Trump insists the investigation is a pitiful last-ditch effort to deceive the American public. More hearings are expected later this month. Meanwhile, current US President Joe Biden has pledged another $1 billion in military aid to Ukraine, and the UK is promising to train thousands of Ukrainian troops following Prime Minister Boris Johnson's second surprise visit to Kiev for a meeting with President Volodymyr Zelensky, having in April become the first leader of a G7 country to travel to the Ukrainian capital since Russia's invasion. It follows a trip earlier in the week by French President Emmanuel Macron, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi, a move that's paved the way for Ukraine to potentially join the European Union. On Friday, the European Commission officially recommended that Ukraine be granted candidate status to the 27-member bloc. Ira Spitzer has more from Brussels.
Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the EU's executive branch, announced the recommendation that Ukraine be allowed to start the process of becoming part of the EU.
Ukraine has clearly demonstrated the country's aspiration to live up to European values and standards.
The Commission also recommended candidate status for Moldova, who, like Ukraine, applied to join the EU shortly after Russia invaded Ukraine in February. It didn't recommend candidate status, however, for now, to Georgia.
Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has criticized what he calls mad and thoughtless sanctions against his nation imposed following the invasion of Ukraine. He used his address at an economic conference in St. Petersburg to implore Russian businesses to keep working in the country. In other news, UK Home Secretary Priti Patel has approved the extradition of Julian Assange to the United States. The founder of WikiLeaks is wanted by US authorities on espionage charges and has been fighting extradition for years. He has 14 days to appeal the decision. His wife Stella vows to spend every waking hour fighting to free her husband. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. Now, following a week in which the US Federal Reserve announced the biggest interest rate hike for nearly 30 years, new figures due out in the week to come are expected to show the US housing market is slowing down due to those rising rates. From New York, here's Sarah Walton.
US markets are closed for a public holiday on Monday, but it won't be a restful week after that. New existing home sales are due out on Tuesday. Figures have fallen for the last 3 months, analysts say because of the rising cost of borrowing. after the Federal Reserve announced a bigger-than-expected interest rate rise of 0.75% last week. Mortgage rates in the US hit their highest level for 14 years. Some economists and investors have warned the US is heading for a recession, and flash figures for the Purchasing Managers' Index released Thursday are expected to show generally weakening economic conditions. A poll by AP and the NORC Center for Public Research found just 1 in 5 adults in the US think the economy is doing well. But last week, both the Fed and President Joe Biden said a recession is not inevitable, with the unemployment rate continuing to remain low.
Nepal's preparing to move its Everest base camp because global warming and human activity are making it unsafe. The camp, used by 1,500 people in the spring climbing season, is situated on a rapidly thinning glacier. A new site will be found at a lower altitude. And Britain's feeling sky high after it was announced the UK could host the Eurovision Song Contest in 2023. Sam Ryder came second in this year's edition with his song Spaceman, the UK's best result since 1998, losing out only to Ukraine. Usually the winner hosts next year's competition, but with the conflict raging on in the war-torn state, the European Broadcasting Union has instead begun discussions with the British Broadcasting Corporation. Downing Street's welcomed the possibility of holding the event in Britain. However, Ukraine's culture minister is demanding they still get to host. And that's the Week in Review from Feature Story News.
According to attendees of a karaoke night at Charlie's Bar and Grill, a man 30 seconds into singing Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror better get his act together and get it together fast.
He up from the get-go, coming in late on that first line, singing totally off-key. He needs to shape up and get his head in the game pronto.
Honestly, he needs to get serious right now or get the f*** off the stage. I mean, what does he think this is? Living on a prayer?
Claiming that this is turning into a train wreck, eyewitnesses say they are embarrassed for the man who has missed several key words despite staring at the prompter the entire time.
You know, he could hit every last note for the remainder of the song, and I still don't know if that would be enough to turn this thing around.
Man in the Mirror is the big leagues, so you better show up with your A-game.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Tonight, it's Ian,
the captain,
and Mark.
Phones are open. You can bring up anything you want. We're kicking off the second hour of the program. We're talking about the woke workplace. And Kraken is one of the world's largest cryptocurrency exchanges that has been, I guess, generating some controversy recently because their CEO has come out publicly and made some very libertarian-sounding statements about having a diversity of thought rather than forcing people's pronouns on other coworkers and such.
I have a question. I thought that at least the most extreme of the woke really didn't work.
That's probably true.
To some extent,
a lot of people still need to pay the rent, right? So they're going out there working.
I think that I think you should develop a sense of respect amongst people that you wish to use whatever your pronoun is, rather than sort of the demand,
the expectation.
Yeah, the walk into the room and I'm here, I'm queer, and you're going to use my pronouns. You know, that kind of thing, because that doesn't sit well.
Mark, did you know that I announced on Free Talk Live what my pronoun?
What is it?
It's mofo.
Mine is Your Majesty.
Let's get your phone
I've decided to change it actually to your eminence or his eminence, and the reason being is the Majesty is just it's too much smacks of rulership and doesn't really work in this community, so the joke falls flat for some. So I've changed myself from Intergalactic Space King to something more descriptive of Intergalactic Space Wizard.
See, mine's mofo, and it's already a household term.
Yes, it is.
So it's already memorable. Right, I don't have to remind people every day. People say, "Hey, mofo." I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" You know? Oh, who did that? Oh, that mofo.
Well, there's more coming up here with that. But first, Jet is on the line in Florida. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead, Jet.
Yo ho, mofo.
Hey, Jet. Before you start talking, I was thinking that I'm going to substitute the word government, and instead I'm going to say murderment.
Well, that's pretty good, because government equals force, which equals violence, which equals evil.
Yeah, and we all know that every law, ordinance, that kind of a thing that these people set forth are backed by the threat and eventual use of a gun, meaning they purport the authority to kill you if you resist. Yeah. And so, therefore, murderment.
Yeah, it's just not right either way.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was going to call in and play the time to play, say no gov, but this time I want to talk about Christianity, because I was, yesterday I was listening to a couple of promos, let's put it this way, from Free Talk Live, and on one of the programs, and I understand these are meant to create controversy, but
they're all,
said,
in many cases.
The person said, I tried Christianity once, and I've heard other people say, well, I was a Christian once, but I'm here to tell you that true Christians, let's put it this way, if you are a Christian, a true Christian, you will die a Christian, and
I think I know which promo you're talking about. I heard it the other night, too. It was an ex-girlfriend of mine who was commenting, and she was referring to a call by a real a-hole who was, very, very negative and nasty, and basically saying, if you don't find Christ, you're going to burn in hell, that kind of message. Right. And her point was that particular messaging was one of the things that turned her off to that whole religion. It's the, was it Gandhi who said it was your Christians that really ruined things for me? It was somebody said your Christ
I like your
is
Christ.
cool.
I don't like your Christians.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah, so that's the problem there. Hey, do me a favor, Jet. Can you back off your phone a little bit? You're a little overmodulated. I don't know if that'll help. But we'll try it.
I was thinking that I wouldn't be heard. Sorry.
Yeah, that's
you sound great now.
Thanks, man.
Okay. So here's how you know a true Christian. First of all, they're not just going to call themselves a Christian. They might refer to themselves as a Christ follower or a disciple of Christ. And the main attribute you'll find is one of compassion and servanthood. You might have heard about you'll know them by their fruit.
Mm-hmm.
The fruit of the Spirit, which is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Well, those things are really what you need to look for. I keep asking people, if I have golf clubs in my closet, but I never get out on the golf course, or I do so very rarely, can I call myself a golfer? If I call myself a libertarian, but I don't really subscribe to the concept of liberty, am I a libertarian?
Nope.
The thing is, people can call themselves anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's some major false teachings that are going on in the church, and that's part of my mission on this earth, because I will declare now and forever that I am a dedicated disciple of Christ, and He is the way for me and for everyone if they choose. But you've heard of things like you should forgive, right?
Of course. I try to live my life by that.
Well, the problem in Christianity is that you cannot forgive unless there is prior repentance. In other words, and I asked the people, when you felt you were forgiven by God, did you not have to repent? And of course, Jesus and John the Baptist both came saying, that you must repent to receive the Christ, that kind of thing. Anyway, any questions so far?
I have a question for you, Jet. Why doesn't Jesus eat M&Ms?
What do you mean?
They keep falling through the holes in his hands.
Well, that's why I like the peanut version. They're a little bit bigger almonds,
Oh, that might work.
No, I don't have any questions about it, Jet. I do like forgiveness, although it does, for me, my forgiveness doesn't require anybody to ask for it or anything like that. It's just...
Well, here's why I say that. And people need to understand that if you let something go without someone acknowledging their the problem that they've caused, you are pretty much enabling them to continue in that sin and possibly do it to somebody else.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but also, like, somebody recently in my life died, and they showed, no signs of, repentance or whatever. Right. And I was like, you know what? I forgive them.
Yeah, forgiveness is...
There's that kind of... Right, so there's forgiveness that's for you.
That's what I'm talking about here.
Right?
Yeah.
And then there's forgiveness for the other person, right? Like, so let's say you have a bad relationship with somebody who, uses physical violence on you and, this kind of thing. And I'm talking about a romantic relationship. Okay. You should forgive that person after you get them out of your life. And then maybe in 3 years when they come back, they say that they've done differently or, something like that. If they've changed their life, they show evidence of repentance, then maybe they could return to the relationship. Yeah. That's not necessary, but that would show full forgiveness. Or you could just forgive them. They could ask for forgiveness or a variety of things.
Well, under the Jesus God thing, of course, it is a requirement. But, a lot of things, what you're talking about there is what I refer to as forgiveness or leaving it at the altar or letting God handle it. In other words, you get it off of you. But the concept of forgiveness in Christianity, I just want to say, is there is required repentance.
All right, Jed, thanks for the call tonight. Appreciate it. The number here is 603-283-6160. You can bring up whatever you want.
I find that some will choose to create repentance in such a way that there is no way to do it. Right? There's no way to be that thing. So, yes, I will forgive you if you do this series of things, right? And you feel this way, you say this thing, you do this stuff, and then I'll forgive you. Well, obviously, nobody's ever going to get to that point because people are different, right? We believe different things. So, in that case, you're not allowing repentance. So there's another turn to this, and, you're no better either. Just remember, God's going to forgive you as you forgive others. That's what Jesus prayed for. That's what God, presumably, came to earth and said as he was speaking to himself before he sacrificed himself for his set of rules that he created.
If only more Christians were more like what Jet was talking about, this true Christian, then I think they would have a lot better reputation all over the place, but so many of them fall so short. In fact, so many of them don't even seem to know what they're even striving for. We're coming up here. It's Free Talk Live.
Are you tired of governments around the world killing innocent people? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin is money that cannot be inflated or controlled by any state. By continuing to use their money, you're perpetuating the killing. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available to you now. Learn it, use it, spread it.
Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. It's Bitcoin.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out for the first time in 2021. Forkfest takes place the week after Porkfest, but Forkfest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. There's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. Forkfest.party. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Phones are open and you can join us here. It's 603-283-6160. You can join us on this live Saturday episode. And Free Talk Live, by the way, brought to you by Liberty in Your Lifetime. It's a conference coming up in October, the 21st through the 23rd, happening in the beautiful city of Prague. Mark, you're going to be there at this conference.
Looking forward to it.
The conference theme is Parallel Structures for Progress. They will be showcasing autonomous cities and intentional communities springing up around the world, offering opportunities for settlers to live freer lives. They'll be exploring those physical developments and those parallel structures emerging in education and finance that are offering alternatives for people looking for better ways to learn, educate their children, and invest in the future. If you think you might want to attend this conference, we've got 20% off for you if you use code FTL20. Right now, I believe there's still an early bird discount as well, so you knock 20% off of that price by using code FTL20 at lifetimeliberty.com. Mark your calendars for October 21st through the 23rd to join Mark and a bunch of other folks there in Prague for what is their second annual conference?
Yes.
I believe the Free Cities Foundation's Liberty in Our Lifetime. Their website, lifetimeliberty.com, code FTL20 saves you 20%. We're going to continue here. We'll take your calls and your thoughts. We've got David on the line in New Mexico. You're on Free Talk Live.
Oh, my goodness. No hold time whatsoever.
What's on your mind tonight?
Oh, lots of things. I always have lots of things on my mind. And kind of like what you're saying about, Gandhi said about, I like your Christ, but not your Christians. I like your liberty, but not your libertarians. Hey, y'all haters, how you doing? So,
wait, is it? I'm trying to remember the names now. It's Monica something and John something.
Yeah.
Romero.
Tomorrow, the Christians celebrate Father's Day. They have a big thing for the father. They think that the fathers are a good thing, not quite as good as the mothers, but good enough to have their own day a month later.
Hold on, what do you think it is that shows that Christians, I guess, don't care as much about fathers as they do about mothers? I'm curious about that.
Oh, well, it's obviously in this swing of the pendulum in our society, fathers are valued way less than mothers, as evidenced by like the family courts and custody stuff.
Well, yeah, but what you're saying is that there's no evidence sort of within the Father's Day, Mother's Day. I'm just curious, like, Sunday's better than Monday, or whatever conclusion you were drawing. But what you're saying is just fathers get the short end of the stick. I agree.
Well, men are valued less in our society. My own mother, 50 years ago, my own mother pointed out to me that on television, on the advertisements especially, they always make men look so stupid. And they're still doing that exact same thing today with a vengeance. But to my point, tomorrow is the celebrated Father's Day, and I'd like to share with with our people in our government, and I happen to be here in New Mexico. So in this case, yes, Captain, Judge Angela Jewell, Judge M. Monica Zamora, Judge John J. Romero Jr., they need to listen up, especially, and Judge Jane Yohalam, my former attorney who won my appeal for me unanimously, that said that M. Monica Zamora illegally trafficked my children, and that was reversed. Never mind, I never saw him again anyway, which is what I want to point. I want the government to know how good a job they're doing. So, Jane, you won that case against M. Monica Zamora, where she tried to make it so I'd never see my kids again. You won that, but I never saw them again anyway, Jane. So
aren't they now working together on the same court, like as judges? Yeah, yes, Jane, and yes, Monica. They're both on the same New Mexico Court of Appeals. They work hand in hand.
I developed a term for David for the nepocestuous. It's a portmanteau.
Yeah,
David, do you have a question came up for me previously? Do you have a Facebook page? You do have one, right?
Yeah, my name is my name, David Olson.
And you maintain it so that your kids, when they are old enough, when they start looking around the internet, they'll see some stuff that you've got on there and hopefully contact you. Is that right?
Maybe, but here's a tactic that you can use, Mark. If you get in a relationship and you have some children and you get the custody of, if you just wait and you end the relationship and you want to keep the children away from the other parent.
Yep.
If you split with the other parent when the children are before they learn to speak, you can change their name away from the name that they had, and then tell them your new boyfriend is their father and that their biological father never existed, and they never knew their original. But they won't even know to look.
Wow.
So so in violating intentionally violating a New Mexico judge's order right now, once again, my son's name is David Olson. We gave him my name. And David Olson, you are now over 18, and you're an adult, and so I am your father, not Odin Elich.
Now, are you unable to reach out to him? Can you just not find him? What's holding you back from reaching out to him now that he's over 18?
Well, there's a court order that was issued by Judge Angela Jewell and also, once again, by M. Monica Zamora and by John J. Romero Jr., saying that I'm not allowed to have any contact with my children.
Ever?
And that order is still...
He's not a child now, right? Legally, he's an adult.
Well, you'd have to argue that in court as to whether that matters to the way that the order is written.
I mean, if it were me, thank you, David, for the call tonight, and I was in that situation being so frustrated, I would just go ahead and do it. The kid's he's no longer a child. He's 18 years old. The order, as far as I'm concerned, is invalid. If it's dealing with children, it's invalid legally, and I would just go and do it and see what happens.
Right.
Thanks for the call.
It would seem to me that if it used the word child or children, then that's referring to people under the age of 18. I get that there's, the English language is tough this way, right? Like they can both be your children and adults at the same time.
That's true, yeah.
So,
but legal land
from a legal standpoint, all words have definitions.
Correct.
In legal land.
The caveat here is that this, whatever this is, came from family court.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
And so we know at least I know from my experience and some reading that I've done on family court, that the regular rules of law do not apply in family court. They can basically do whatever the hell they want to.
Well, the worst case is he's going to get snatched up for contempt of court.
Right.
I mean, they already stole his kids from him, so it's like you've already taken everything from this man.
And he's already won the right to see the kids and that sort of thing. And it's never been enforced by the court itself, so it's going to enforce the order not to see them.
Force the issue. Go see the guy. He's 18 years old now.
I don't know that I'd refer to that as one, though. I know he did and we do, but he didn't. The judgment may have been in his favor, but he did not win.
He didn't get his kids back.
He certainly didn't win.
It's frustrating, and I feel for anybody that's in that circumstance. And David is just one of millions or hundreds of thousands or whatever. There's so many men and some women who've been just royally screwed by the government court systems.
Yeah, to David's point too, I remember the most popular television shows when I was 13, 14, in that age. The image of the fathers was always bumbling idiot. We're talking Al Bundy. We're talking Homer Simpson.
Right.
That kind of a thing. And so at least the television was telling everybody that, hey, men are bumbling idiots.
I don't think it was that way with necessarily like I Love Lucy, My Three Sons. I suppose Darren got the short end of the stick in Bewitched, but not from a bumbling standpoint.
Gilligan's Island, Skipper was a bumbler.
Yeah, but he wasn't a dad.
Gilligan was a bumbler.
There's more coming up here. The number is 603-283-6160. You can share your thoughts with us here on this live episode, as all of them are, of Free Talk Live.
A congressman recently revealed that legislation totaling 2,900 pages and involving more than $1 trillion was available to members of Congress for less than 48 hours to study and consider. That's over 60 pages of legislation per hour. Do you think anyone read the entire bill? I'm Jim Babka with DownsizeDC.org. Consider a proposal buried in a 3,200-page, $388 billion bill, which would have empowered committee chairmen or their agents to examine Americans' tax returns. When this horrible provision came to light, no one claimed to know how it got into the bill. One congressman questioned said, "I didn't write it, I didn't approve it, I wasn't even consulted." If your attorney represented you this way, he might be disbarred. But this is how Congress represents you every day. That's why DownsizeDC.org has created the Read the Bills Act. You can force Congress to read their bills before they pass them at DownsizeDC.org.
From Feature Story News in Washington, D.C., I'm Benji Haya with your Week in Review. A week in which Americans were told their democracy came dangerously close to catastrophe during the attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6th last year, according to the Congressional Committee investigating the assault. In the second and third of a series of hearings, lawmakers also highlighted what they said was Donald Trump's relentless effort to pressure then Vice President Mike Pence to refuse to count the Electoral College votes and instead declare Mr. Trump the winner of the 2020 election, as his supporters stormed the halls of Congress. In his testimony, Mike Pence's former advisor, Judge Michael Luttig, said doing so would have caused a constitutional crisis.
Had Vice President Pence obeyed the orders from his president, that would have been tantamount to a revolution.
Donald Trump insists the investigation is a pitiful last-ditch effort to deceive the American public. More hearings are expected later this month. Meanwhile, current US President Joe Biden has pledged another $1 billion in military aid to Ukraine, and the UK is promising to train thousands of Ukrainian troops following Prime Minister Boris Johnson's second surprise visit to Kiev for a meeting with President Volodymyr Zelensky, having in April become the first leader of a G7 country to travel to the Ukrainian capital since Russia's invasion. It follows a trip earlier in the week by French President Emmanuel Macron, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi, a move that's paved the way for Ukraine to potentially join the European Union. On Friday, the European Commission officially recommended that Ukraine be granted candidate status to the 27-member bloc. Ira Spitzer has more from Brussels.
Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the EU's executive branch, announced the recommendation that Ukraine be allowed to start the process of becoming part of the EU.
Ukraine has clearly demonstrated the country's aspiration to live up to European values and standards.
The Commission also recommended candidate status for Moldova, who, like Ukraine, applied to join the EU shortly after Russia invaded Ukraine in February. It didn't recommend candidate status, however, for now, to Georgia.
Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has criticized what he calls mad and thoughtless sanctions against his nation imposed following the invasion of Ukraine. He used his address at an economic conference in St. Petersburg to implore Russian businesses to keep working in the country. In other news, UK Home Secretary Priti Patel has approved the extradition of Julian Assange to the United States. The founder of WikiLeaks is wanted by US authorities on espionage charges and has been fighting extradition for years. He has 14 days to appeal the decision. His wife Stella vows to spend every waking hour fighting to free her husband. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Phones open. 603-283-6160. You can bring up whatever you want to talk about. That's 603-283-6160. Here in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
The Reverend Captain Kickass.
And Mark.
And you can join us online anytime you want over at freetalklive.com. Many features await you there, including our podcast feed. So if you want to subscribe to the show and have episodes delivered to you automatically, you need those feeds. You can go to feeds.freetalklive.com and pick the one that you prefer. There's the one that's sort of the main feed. It's got everything that we put out. Digest shows, full shows, other special things like interviews or whatever it is we include in the feed. And then there's the digest-only feed for those of you that are constantly on a time crunch. You just can't listen to a full 2-hour show.
I do like that.
Every single day. There's that feed. And then there's also the full shows feed for those of you that just want that. And there's other options for listening there. So go to feeds.freetalklive.com and you'll find those. We go back to your phone calls and thoughts. We got Ala Loca calling us from the Orlando area in Florida. Go ahead, Ala Loca.
Hey guys, I wanted to make a point and also wanted to ask a question. So my first point is, I'm really into this YouTube channel called We the People University. It's about a former police officer who either will comment or give his two cents on what auditors are doing across the nation. And I was thinking,
auditors like First Amendment auditors, people that go into government bureaucracies with a video camera?
Yes, he's really good at finding really good content on YouTube. And I was, I usually like to go through the comments section and read what's going on there. And I feel like there's so many people who are just like one step away from understanding that the root cause of all these issues, all the symptoms that we're facing is government. And I feel like if we could market to these people, we could focus our efforts into, trying to convince them or teach them that the root cause is government.
It's a really good point that you have, that you're right. I think, like, libertarians or anarchists or freedom-oriented people, it's become a bit of a joke. Like, the other day I saw something that was like, well, how can we blame this on government, right? Because it is so... like, there are so many things that government is directly responsible for causing that you can trace back to it if you just use a little bit of reason and logic, that to us it's kind of become a little bit of a joke. But to those people who haven't looked into it for themselves and they find that first thing, they're like, oh my gosh, government really is responsible for insert thing here.
Well, I love using the term government is responsible, because that is an irresponsible statement. I mean, here's a group of people who are not responsible for anything. Like, they literally, that's their whole thing. It means you never have to say you're sorry because they bear no responsibility. They are, in fact, the definition of irresponsible.
With great power comes no responsibility.
Right, because there's the reality. Sorry, Stan and Jack. It's Mike. What was Ditka? Mike Ditka? Sorry, Stan and Mike. In fact, with great power comes no responsibility for your actions, whatever. The United States federal courts have just ruled one more time that the government doesn't have any responsibility to protect you.
So, Ala Loca, you're saying you think libertarians should sponsor channels like the YouTube channel you're talking about, the First Amendment audit channels?
I didn't think of that, but that would be great. Just any form of, what I do is I just go to the comments and usually just say, hey, if you guys want to take it a next step forward, why don't you hear about the Free State Project? Why don't you hear about New Hampshire? Why don't you hear about these auditors that are doing such great things there? If you want to be surrounded by other trolls, because I think auditors are trolls. I love the idea that they just mess around with cops in a positive way. But if they can, unite together, like I see that, what's the other gentleman's name that's a co-host there?
Joa,
breaking the flaw.
He's on frequently on Thursday nights, although he's taking a few weeks off due to the Pork Fest thing, and Mark's in town and all that.
Imagine if all these auditors were together. It would just make so much more sense.
It is frustrating because Joe will come in here and sometimes he goes on the air with it. Sometimes he just tells us off the air. It's like, oh, such and such auditor in Texas or in, Vegas or wherever it is they have.
There's like a community of them, but they're global.
Yeah, the so-and-so auditor, oh, he just got arrested and their fans are so rabid, they will do what they can from far away. They'll call the jail. They'll do a call bomb or whatever you want to call it on the jail and frustrate the jail employees to the point where they might let the person out sooner or whatever.
That worked way back when Liberty was on tour, 10 or 15 years ago or whatever it was, when Damo and Pete and I can't remember who else got locked up. Might have been Jason Talley. But what libertarians and activists and these sorts of people don't seem to understand is that the same tricks don't continue to work.
Well,
statists are people, and people learn.
Well, that's true, but arguably they could still have an effect.
I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I just don't expect it to work every time.
Well, yeah, what does work mean? I mean,
in the case of the Liberty on Tour guys, they got let go with the charges dropped finally.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly the best case scenario. I think what you can realistically expect is you're just going to frustrate the jail guards. Whatever comes out of that.
What's really the point of that, though? I mean, ultimately, as you know, Ian, the jail guards aren't the ones that
you really want to call the sheriff's department or whoever the arresting agencies were to really, if you want your voice to be heard. But the point that I think Alaloka is making here is that's as far as those people can go. They can't physically go down to the sheriff's office. Whereas if a group of these First Amendment people, these auditor types, were in the same geographic area, one of them gets arrested, 3 more can swarm in on the sheriff's department or whatever.
Did anybody go down to the FBI office? I don't know where the field office is for New Hampshire.
Bedford.
It's in Bedford, New Hampshire. Did they go down there and they protest when Free Talk Live studios were raided? No, nothing like that happened. I wondered where are these rabid defenders of liberty here in New Hampshire?
Yeah, there just aren't enough people. It's scary.
There's plenty of people that could have gone there and held hands and made a ring. There's enough movers for the Free State Project. They could have made a ring around the FBI office, and the FBI would have had to use force in order to enter their own office.
Gotcha. The reason why the auditors are unique is because they've got balls. And your typical activists, they just want to run for political office and get elected and try to change systems through the system. We certainly had people like that here in 2012. We made a whole documentary, Mark. It's called Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree, which you can watch at victimlesscrimespree.com, where we had at least a dozen people with that level of courage here in Keene. And we did some amazing stuff. We stood outside the courthouse, and we didn't have enough people to put a ring around it, but we stood outside the courthouse for multiple days when the bureaucrats were going in and out of work and gave them a hard time to the point where they called the sheriffs and had us no trespassed from the courthouse in that particular case. And
are we calling that a victory?
Well, yeah, we made them very, very uncomfortable. If that was the purpose of it, then that's absolutely what we accomplished. And so that's go ahead, Alaloka.
I just wanted to say that not only that they all get to be, in the same geographical area, but imagine all the other people who are watching these YouTube channels, seeing these auditors doing what they're doing, and seeing them do it in New Hampshire. I would be convinced that they would be persuaded to join Liberty in some form or fashion. They can already see that government is the failing point here. I think they can take the next leap forward.
Yeah, to me, the auditors, the benefit of the auditors or their purpose is more journalistic to me, right? Yes, it's they get to sort of piss off the man or whatever when they go and they do these things, but it's the YouTube videos that they make that serve as, hey, everybody, this is how it is.
That's right. This is how they treat you.
Yes.
Look, I have one of these videos, and it's out there on the internet. It's got probably 100,000 views.
You're talking about where you go through the Border Patrol checkpoint?
When I go through the Border Patrol checkpoint. And all I ask him is that if I'm being detained, and if I'm not being detained, or if I am being detained, what is the reasonable, articulable suspicion that you have that I'm not a U.S. citizen? Because, according to the Constitution, constitutional law, you can't detain somebody without reasonable, articulable suspicion. And without reasonable, articulable suspicion, you're not being detained. So why am I stopped here?
Yeah.
I don't know why. I have a question. Before I answer any of your questions, answer mine. And they really can't. And we go on from there. I don't think I've done anything successful in making the world freer by having this video.
Well, that's just a negative attitude that you have.
Who comment on it are just like, why don't you just tell them where you're citizen?
You shouldn't read the comments on any video. I mean, you're going to get the worst of the worst in the comments. Thank you, Alaloka, for the call tonight. And you're just being really negative, Mark. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who've never said a word to you about it, who really appreciated the fact that you stood up for yourself.
Appreciate is one thing.
And maybe they learned something from it. Maybe they learned what it's like when you actually have that conversation with somebody from the Border Patrol. There's more coming up. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com.
How many lawyers does it take to change a light bulb? None. They'd rather keep their clients in the dark. There are too many lawyer jokes to count. However, there are some lawyers with more noble intentions. At the Institute for Justice, we bring the light to our clients. We are a non-profit public interest law firm with clear values and principles. At IJ, we fight for those whose most basic rights are denied by the government. Visit our website today at ij.org.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means, stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here in the studio tonight, you've got Ian.
The captain.
And Mark.
And Mark's Negative Nancy side is coming out here in this last conversation.
This is one of the problems on Free Talk Live is the echo chamber effect. Like Ian's got opinions, and he holds them very, very strongly.
Well, no, they're backed
And
by
he's come-
evidence.
I'm
They're
not
backed by
saying-
evidence.
So they're not
The
opinions?
fact is, when you and the captain was giving you evidence over the break, which you didn't hear on the air, but the captain was saying to counter what you were pointing out, that you were disappointed with, or you don't think that your video where you stand up for yourself at a Border Patrol checkpoint had a positive impact. And the captain was giving, because there's negative comments on it. There's always going to be negative people out there. The haters are more likely to
No, what I'm
post
saying
something.
is humanity is largely stupid and will get the government that it deserves. I'm sorry. That's what I truly believe.
I know.
Is that
You've been
you,
saying that
ladies
for
and gentlemen,
years.
will get the government you deserve. And if you want a better government than you have, sitting around and crying about it isn't going to do it. Going out and doing activism for it isn't going to do it. You're going to have to pick up and move.
Well, that's what you believe.
Yes, I do.
But other
You do
people
too.
believe that you can move together with other activists and then have a greater effect. And that's what we've seen happening here in New Hampshire. And the captain was giving you an example during the break of how specifically it's YouTube videos like yours, and it may not have been specifically yours in his case, that motivated him to these ideas, right?
Yes.
And ultimately to migrate to New Hampshire.
Yeah. Back in the day when YouTube was cool and had actual user content instead of all this sponsored crap they got now since Google took over it, you could very easily find many educational videos about freedom, the philosophy of freedom, how statism, is really an evil in this world. I'm trying to remember some of the videos. Jacob Spinney does one called "The State Is Not Great." That's an old school YouTube video.
Anything by Larkin Rose.
All of his YouTube stuff. All of the free
There's some
Keane
greats
stuff
by Stefan Molyneux, too.
The Keane stuff.
You mean the older videos?
Pre-cancer Stefan Molyneux, certainly key as far as philosophy is concerned. And then, of course, all of the Keane activism videos that I saw, of the early cop blocking stuff and all that kind of stuff. All of those things put together, are why I'm here, quite literally.
Yeah, and I think we're better off having you here than if you weren't here.
Thanks. I my first reaction to all of that was like, oh my God, I'm not alone.
I believe that New Hampshire is the larval form of the great new whatever the liberty thing is going to be in the future. I don't think it's in New Hampshire, though. Because I don't think that you could have freedom in the United States. I mean, it was a great idea,
trying to leave.
but it was also an idea that was created like 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's
at this
true.
point.
And it's had
the
more
internet was
success.
really in its incipience at that
and
point.
it's had more success in 20 years than the Libertarian Party has had in 50-plus years.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And
they
it's
do
been
seem to be coming to their
incredibly
own, though, right about now. The Libertarian Party's had some success.
No, they haven't. They're just coming.
They're getting some
they
folks
just
elected.
Not really. I mean, there was one lady who won, I think, in Nebraska in a two-way race. So, I mean, if you're in a Libertarian in a two-way race,
LA
you got a chance.
city councilor or something, didn't they?
No, not to my knowledge.
California?
I think they have a city councilor somewhere in the United States, but I don't think it's in Los Angeles.
Okay. Well, I think it's near that. Maybe San Bernardino or something.
But anyway, the caller there, Ella Loca's point is concentration works. Concentration makes sense. We've proven that it works. And that's why a lot of people moved here. In fact, you mentioned the video channels out there, Captain. I remember it was Google Video, which was the thing before YouTube.
Whoa.
Back in like 2005 or 2004 or something like that, where a guy named Roger Grant was making videos here in Keene of some of the earliest movers here because of the Free State Project, doing some really amazing civil disobedience. They were, one time they got arrested at the IRS office here in Keene just for standing there with signs or going, like walking up. I don't think Russell Cannon even made it in the office. He was walking up the stairs wearing a straw hat and they arrested him. The Federal Protective Service came out for it. And I just, when I saw those videos, I knew there was something special that was happening in New Hampshire and specifically in Keene, and I had to be here. So it's because of those videos.
If you've got to get your liberty by fighting for it against a force of people who get a paycheck and have flags flying behind them, you're in big trouble.
I mean,
that's what I'm going to say.
Has liberty ever been gotten in any other way?
Has it been gotten?
I'm just saying that
that's all I'm saying.
You have to exercise your freedoms in order to have them.
I'll say this. Special economic zones have existed at the very least since, somewhere around the 1960s. Now there are currently 4,000, depending on how you define it, between 4,000 and 10,000 special economic zones. When you're talking about thousands, they're not even special anymore. They're just economic zones. When you can have a special economic zone in which you can live, that they do exist.
Which they don't have. Oh, they do have.
They do have. They have those currently. And that those can then begin to compete against each other.
That hasn't happened yet, though, right?
They have. It's just in its very, very early stages. Much earlier than, say, the Free State Project.
Yeah, that's why I say I'm interested in seeing these things develop, but it's
that's what
too
I think
early.
is what's going to work.
You look at seasteading. They tried that outside of Thailand, and they got raided, and the place got burned down or whatever the hell happened
It was
to it.
one shack on a
right, and that's why you need more than one person, right? Like you can't do this alone. You can't go and find freedom alone unless it's living in the woods, living as close to the land and as away from people as possible. So if you want to have a society, then you have to have people.
Currently, what I'm looking at in Honduras is free zones, free residential zones where people can go and live. And at that point, they can already expect incredibly low taxation, incredibly low regulatory burden. And this is what I consider important. If you want hookers, you want to have hookers and you want to have gambling and you want to have weed, like they already do that in Nevada. You already can do all three of those things.
They have that in Saipan?
Yeah, in Saipan too, but sort of the little brother.
the difference between what you're talking about, Mark, and kind of where I'm at.
I don't want any of those things.
Is that, let's just say those are the things that I want. And yes, I could certainly go there and have those things. But I want, call it altruistic, whatever it is. But I want everybody else to have the freedom to do whatever the hell they want to, as long as they're not hurting anybody.
That's the problem.
How is that a problem?
You want freedom for other people, and I'm sorry, it's not that kind of.
I want freedom for other people because I realize that in order for me to keep having freedom that I want, I have to want that for other people. That's the only way it works.
Everybody out there, I'm telling you right now, the
one true path, Mark's, is the way.
It's not Ian's. Ian's path is to move to New Hampshire. Mark's path is to move to Honduras.
I don't care what people do. If you want to go and live in Honduras, you should go and live in Honduras. I'm supporting you on what you're doing here, Mark.
Well,
and
I appreciate that you are.
You just talk crap about everybody else's ideas.
Why am I talking crap? What did I say? Okay,
you say that you don't think it's going to work.
I don't.
And so you down it as often as you possibly can.
When
you just
bring
talk
it up,
crap about people posting videos on the internet because you don't think it has an effect on people.
I've done it. And
I told you that you don't understand how many people you've reached with that. Yeah, you can look at the comments and see a bunch of negative people talking crap about you there, but you're always going to see more of that. Whenever you post something that's effective and useful and educational about helping free people, you can guarantee that the haters are going to go all ape-s about that. But what you don't hear about, because they're probably 1/100th of the comments, is you don't hear the people who said, I really appreciated that video and it gave me the courage to stand up for myself the next time that some bureaucrat with a badge and a gun tries pushing me around. Well, those people are out there.
I suspect that the checkpoint in El Paso on Interstate 10 is still there, and that it hasn't done anything about that.
That's probably true.
And it's probably been...
The state isn't going to crumble overnight.
Oh, it's been about 10 years, buddy.
The state's been around for thousands of years, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. But you just discount the fact that you had an
impact. It's my activism. I can discount it if I wish.
And I'm not going to accept it, because I know for a fact that if you have over 100,000 views on that video,
I think so, yeah.
You better believe that
the problem is that the statists grab it, and then they recopy the video.
Fine.
And, nobody does anything about it.
The more people see it, the better.
Dude, I was in a heavy metal band for more than a decade. The last one I was in promoted the crap out of what we paid for advertisements, did all the stuff that you're supposed to do, did more. Like other bands were like, dude, I can't believe how much you do to promote your band or whatever, right? I like our video probably still has under 200 hits on it. So for you to have a video about, some sort of activism where you're basically confronting a bureaucrat with 100,000 views, that's not nothing.
Right, and it may be true. It may be true that 80,000 or 90,000 of those people hated the fact that someone stuck up for themselves and stood up to the police. And they hate you for that. That may be the case. But if 5,000 or 10,000 of them are people who were empowered or felt encouraged by the fact that somebody stood up for themselves, that's who we're looking for. And maybe they don't tell you personally. Maybe you'll never hear it. But I hear it from time to time. Somebody will come to me and say, what you did was, I appreciate it.
I'm sure you do.
It inspired me to care about freedom. It inspired me to stand up for myself or whatever. And if one person tells you that, there's probably another 100 that think that, but they're never going to meet you. They're never going to tell you or whatever. There's more coming up here. 603-283-6160. You never know who your actions or words are going to touch.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, D.C., I'm Benji Haya with your Week in Review. A week in which Americans were told their democracy came dangerously close to catastrophe during the attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6th last year, according to the Congressional Committee investigating the assault. In the second and third of a series of hearings, lawmakers also highlighted what they said was Donald Trump's relentless effort to pressure then Vice President Mike Pence to refuse to count the Electoral College votes and instead declare Mr. Trump the winner of the 2020 election, as his supporters stormed the halls of Congress. In his testimony, Mike Pence's former advisor, Judge Michael Luttig, said doing so would have caused a constitutional crisis.
Had Vice President Pence obeyed the orders from his president, that would have been tantamount to a revolution.
Donald Trump insists the investigation is a pitiful last-ditch effort to deceive the American public. More hearings are expected later this month. Meanwhile, current US President Joe Biden has pledged another $1 billion in military aid to Ukraine, and the UK is promising to train thousands of Ukrainian troops following Prime Minister Boris Johnson's second surprise visit to Kiev for a meeting with President Volodymyr Zelensky, having in April become the first leader of a G7 country to travel to the Ukrainian capital since Russia's invasion. It follows a trip earlier in the week by French President Emmanuel Macron, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi, a move that's paved the way for Ukraine to potentially join the European Union. On Friday, the European Commission officially recommended that Ukraine be granted candidate status to the 27-member bloc. Ira Spitzer has more from Brussels.
Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the EU's executive branch, announced the recommendation that Ukraine be allowed to start the process of becoming part of the EU.
Ukraine has clearly demonstrated the country's aspiration to live up to European values and standards.
The Commission also recommended candidate status for Moldova, who, like Ukraine, applied to join the EU shortly after Russia invaded Ukraine in February. It didn't recommend candidate status, however, for now, to Georgia.
Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has criticized what he calls mad and thoughtless sanctions against his nation imposed following the invasion of Ukraine. He used his address at an economic conference in St. Petersburg to implore Russian businesses to keep working in the country. In other news, UK Home Secretary Priti Patel's approved the extradition of Julian Assange to the United States. The founder of WikiLeaks is wanted by US authorities on espionage charges and has been fighting extradition for years. He has 14 days to appeal the decision. His wife Stella vows to spend every waking hour fighting to free her husband. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. Now, following a week in which the US Federal Reserve announced the biggest interest rate hike for nearly 30 years, new figures due out in the week to come are expected to show the US housing market is slowing down due to those rising rates. From New York, here's Sarah Walton.
US markets are closed for a public holiday on Monday, but it won't be a restful week after that. New existing home sales are due out on Tuesday. Figures have fallen for the last 3 months, analysts say, because of the rising cost of borrowing. After the Federal Reserve announced a bigger than expected interest rate rise of 0.75% last week, mortgage rates in the US hit their highest level for 14 years. Some economists and investors have warned the US is heading for a recession, and flash figures for the Purchasing Managers' Index released Thursday are expected to show generally weakening economic conditions. A poll by AP and the NORC Centre for Public Research found just 1 in 5 adults in the US think the economy is doing well. But last week, both the Fed and President Joe Biden said a recession is not inevitable, with the unemployment rate continuing to remain low.
Nepal's preparing to move its Everest base camp because global warming and human activity are making it unsafe. The camp, used by 1,500 people in the spring climbing season, is situated on a rapidly thinning glacier. A new site will be found at a lower altitude. And Britain's feeling sky high after it was announced the UK could host the Eurovision Song Contest in 2023. Sam Ryder came second in this year's edition with his song Spaceman, the UK's best result since 1998, losing out only to Ukraine. Usually the winner hosts next year's competition, but with the conflict raging on in the war-torn state, the European Broadcasting Union has instead begun discussions with the British Broadcasting Corporation. Downing Street's welcomed the possibility of holding the event in Britain. However, Ukraine's culture minister is demanding they still get to host. And that's the Week in Review from Feature Story News.
A new teen trend of walking wet and nude couldn't have caught on at a worse time, and a taxpayer is outraged. And lo, the Lord said unto the Israelites, look unto the heavens, and you shall see a news review program to rival the greatest wonders of the earth. This is the Onion Week in Review. As a front of dense, frigid air and snow showers brought sub-zero temperatures to much of the country this week, Canton, Ohio residents noted that the blanketing of snow they had received created the illusion that their town was not a total shithole. Residents added that unlike its typical depressing reality, the snow-cloaked town actually looked halfway livable.
Canton is usually a miserable little dump, but you know when that first snow fell and covered everything in a layer of white powder? For about 5 minutes it was like not everything I saw depressed the living out of me.
Reports from locals also confirmed that for a brief period the streets, parks, and buildings around them gave the surprising impression of not being a run-down, heartbreaking excuse for a hometown.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, and you join us here as we kick off the third hour of the show here on this live Saturday episode. Tonight, it's Ian,
the Reverend Captain Kickass,
and Mark.
And as so often happens when Mark is behind a microphone, we have gotten into activism and tactics and strategy.
Activism tactics? Tactivism.
I'm glad that the captain is here tonight for this conversation because Mark and I have had it so many times. It's nice to have a third perspective, somebody who can ask some different questions and take your own unique perspective on this. Because listeners who've been tuned in the last few years know that Mark has been exploring the world. He's been looking at these special economic zones, which he referred to recently. He says he's not burned out. He's just changed his perspective on what is valuable to him. And you know what? That's totally fine. For Mark, as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong on this, you believe that you can just attain more freedom by going to a place that has the freedoms that you're looking for. And you're trying and you're trying to find the best place for that. And if you can't find the best place, you're looking to create one, basically, through this special economic zone concept.
And I mean, I would say that one can go to a place and find more freedom for oneself. If one wishes to collect together with other liberty-minded people, it's in my opinion that we have a lack in this world of a place where there is regulatory and tax freedom. That there's all kinds of other freedoms, if that's what you're looking for, the things that can make you happy. But that if you want a place where you can sort of be safe and keep your tax dollar and, you know, live a nice family life and these kind of things, that's a little harder to find.
Well, New Hampshire certainly has very high property taxes, but overall the tax burden here is fairly low.
I got to say, I feel burned. Like I am butthurt, if that's the terminology we want to use.
Okay, so you prefer butthurt to burned out?
I'm not burned out because
Okay.
I am doing something every
butthurt.
single day.
Yeah.
I could have quit this show 2 years ago or a year and a half ago when you got arrested, and everybody would have supported me. They said, okay, good luck, Mark, in your new adventure, whatever it is. They absolutely would have. The idea that I have been burnt out while I am out there every single day trying to find better answers to the questions of liberty that I currently have is cruel.
So,
just saying.
So I'm just going to jump in here because when I decided to move here to New Hampshire, I had a list of places. New Hampshire wasn't the only thing on the list, right? I had done some research, internet
all in
research,
the US?
of course.
All the places?
No,
No,
negative.
okay.
In fact, New Hampshire was the only place in the
interesting.
U.S. that was on my list. Mexico was on my list. Chile was on my list. Vietnam was on my list. I think there was one more I'm forgetting. But these were places where, like, I had heard a little bit about, or maybe some activism was done, some failed things, the Gulch thing that happened in Chile, decade or so ago, 2 decades ago now, maybe. I don't remember how. It's a long time ago. But that thing fell apart.
Right.
I thought it was a good idea, but I was waiting to see, did it develop? And no, it didn't, and it fell apart.
Took people's money and
took
never got
people's money. It
started,
was
right?
a scam, basically. At least that's how I remember things going down. But like, that didn't preclude me from adding things to my list. So I had different places on my list, but I had to come here first because this is the first place that I saw, as you point out, Ian, people coming together to do these things. You know, you're making the videos, you're doing the activism. There's a whole bunch of people got together and decided this was the place to go, the Free State Project, right? And so I was like, well, I'm going to come here first because I would regret not coming here if I were to go to somewhere else. Like, in my mind, that's what I thought. Now, I'm here, and I still see everything that's going on. You know, here in New Hampshire, I see all the other stuff that's going on in other places. I'm far more plugged into anything remotely resembling a liberty community here than I was before I moved here. I see room for both of these things to exist, and exist not only cooperatively, but in a very friendly fashion. That is to say that I appreciate that Mark is out there trying to find other places where freedom can be had, perhaps in a different way or for a different type of a person. But I appreciate that he's out there, as I call it, gallivanting, right? But he is out there. He's doing work. He's, on a quest of his own, on a mission of his own, to go and find a place that more suits his ideas of what freedom should look like at this point in his life. It doesn't mean that I'm going to move to Honduras tomorrow or anything like that. It doesn't even mean that I'm going to move.
Yeah.
Right? And Mark brought up something earlier, and I think you brought it up too. It's that if you can get, several different places aspiring to be free, not only will that sort of create competition in the freedom marketplace, which is great for innovation, but it can also create cooperation. Imagine if you had a New Hampshire in another country, and then another one of those.
I don't want a New Hampshire. I think that's.
I'm just saying.
There's a low bar.
I mean a group. I don't mean New Hampshire.
I know
the
what
state.
you mean.
I mean
but
the
I don't
group
want to
of
use
freedom-loving people.
New Hampshire's a state. Okay?
I understand.
It's
also
an organization that claims the monopoly privilege and the use of violence.
It's also a plot of land.
The something better than that.
I'm referring to the group of freedom-loving people that have purposely relocated here. Now, what if you could find or even create another group of freedom-loving people somewhere else, right, who share the same philosophies and ideas, who can, now trade with each other, who can do all sorts of things. Perhaps you can have dual citizenship.
Snowbirds.
Right? Yeah.
Well,
people who don't like, and you know what I'm saying, though. I'm like, you could have a summer place over there and a winter place
There's
over there.
There's people doing it right now in New Hampshire that are going from Florida to New Hampshire, and they're.
What I'm saying is that there's completely room for multiple freedom-centric places or groups to exist on planet Earth. New Hampshire isn't the be-all, end-all, but it's a pretty good idea in my estimation, near as I can tell. Now, I haven't been here as long as you have, so will time change that? I don't know. Will I at some point go, how much blabbing on the radio can a guy do and how much activism I don't know. I don't know the answer to this thing. But right now, there's certainly room for more than one sort of freedom movement on planet Earth.
Yep.
So here's what I think New Hampshire's good for. If you want to move someplace and you want to get involved in whatever way you get involved, whether it's running for office or chasing cops around with a camera or whatever your thing is, and you want to have step-by-step success, you want to be part of a group that does that has step-by-step success, you're going to have that in New Hampshire. But in my opinion, we're starting much lower here than we could by simply working with some country to create a special economic zone that is tailored.
When you say working with a country, you mean a gang of criminals known as the government,
right,
of that country that you cannot trust.
Okay, like well, all I can tell you is it's a small club and you're not in it, and you're not getting in it right now. If Turks and Caicos, and I'm just picking a country out of the air because it makes sense, gave you one of their islands and said, "Ian, this is yours, man. It's yours, man. It's your king. Do what you want, man." Right? Like they did the whole thing. They made it.
I wouldn't believe a word of it.
Well, it wouldn't make a difference. Even if they abided by it, you wouldn't get in the UN. No one would be able to trade with you or anything like that. You need to be part of these federations of groups, of political groups, in order to live a modern life and thrive and have a good time and all that other stuff. Otherwise, you're just some idiot cracking coconuts with a rock on some island.
Okay, so therefore you're arguing that you should trust the Honduran government or fill-in-the-blank government to honor their word, because already they're breaking their promises.
I think that every single time you make deals with governments, that you can expect some of them to try to claw back as much as possible.
Yeah.
And that over time you'll get better and better with writing the laws, like ultimately the contract, as it were.
My point overall is, we don't know what is ultimately going to work.
No, we don't.
Right? So we best have a whole bunch of people trying different stuff.
Yeah. Yep. I really want it to be true that whatever government it is that Mark ends up finding that makes this deal with the special economic zones, because as we already pointed out, Honduras is going back on it already. I hope they honor their agreement, and that there is some sort of carved out area where people who actually want freedom can go to. Because like you, Captain, I'm on your side on this one, in that I don't just want freedom for myself. I want freedom for others who want freedom.
Yes.
There's people out there that don't want it. And if they don't want freedom, that's fine. And that's fine, too. If they want somebody to tell them how to live their lives, there's plenty of Joe Bidens and Donald Trumps and Putins and Zelensky's out there that want to tell them how. And those people can have that. That's the 99.999% of the world or whatever. But if we can have that 0.1% or whatever carved out for the people that want to be free, and if they're allowed to get there, then that's enough for me. I'll be satisfied with that. I don't think I can change the whole world, and I think it's silly to try. Let's try to change New Hampshire or Mark's little corner of wherever it ends up being. More coming up.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it! You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Do you ever say, I could care less, when you really mean the opposite? You mean to say, I couldn't care less. It's a common mistake. You are judged by how you speak, especially if you're looking for work, with so many more applicants than openings now. But even if you're not, avoiding common misstatements will help you make the most of the dozens of conversations and transactions that crowd your daily routine. So whatever you say, don't say whatever as a single word sentence. It's the most annoying expression in the American English language, according to a recent poll. And avoid cliches like the plague. Just kidding. But seriously, at the end of the day, you'll want to avoid this scenario, sounding like everyone else. For more tips, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. The phones are open here, and you can join us. The number is 603-283-6160. Different approaches to achieving more liberty in our lifetime. And you know what? I hope they all are successful.
I do too, and I want to encourage people who are listening outside of the United States as well to, see if you can't start up some sort of group of like-minded people who are interested in finding more freedom, and get together with those people and figure out how you're going to do that. Maybe you'll come up. We need innovation because the entire planet Earth has been claimed by governments. There is no place on planet Earth where a person can go unmolested by an organization known as government, and that is not cool.
Shouldn't be that way. Now, no matter where you find yourself, you're always going to be hungry at some point.
Yep.
So you can satiate that hunger and help spread the ideas of freedom with Truth Smacks. Suzanne is a former English teacher and a longtime truth seeker. She started her own trail mix brand. She's making it, bagging it, and sealing up herself in a commercial kitchen down in Naples, Florida. I'm a fan. I've got a bag of Truth Smacks here in the studio, and whenever
I've seen it.
Yep. Whenever I get a little hungry, I'm usually.
I wish they'd make a no carb one.
Yeah, is that possible?
I don't know.
I don't know either. But for those of you that don't mind a few delicious,
aren't too carby, are they?
Yeah, I can eat cashews, almonds.
But he's avoiding
stuff like
fruit,
I
think.
think. Yeah, fruit and sugar.
Yeah.
And there is some chocolate in the.
I'm against any diet that doesn't include fruit.
Truthsmacks.com/shop. They're delicious, and they come in 2 sizes and in their original flavor, which is definitely the favorite. Although some people do like the peppermint flavor as well, which is pretty unique product. But what really sets it apart are the quotes, the actual bag design on the back side and on the front. There are quotes from famous and infamous people, both ancient and to this day, about freedom and liberty. And it's a great little outreach tool, whether you're handing it to a kid or you're handing it to your grandma or whatever. You can find people who are interested in freedom, discover new people who've never heard these ideas before through their stomachs. And everybody's hungry at some point, and they appreciate being given the gift of delicious things to eat. So check out truthsmacks.com. If you're going to be at the Porcupine Freedom Festival coming up next week, you can meet Suzanne. She's going to be coming up there, and I imagine she'll be loaded up with Truth Smacks that she'll be able to sell to you there on the campground. So check them out at truthsmacks.com/shop. I don't endorse a lot of products, but I will definitely give them my endorsement. I'm a fan. So we've been talking about freedom. We've been talking about activism. And when I say Mark was burned out, he's taking it real personal. What I mean is,
I think it's cruel, and I think it's a way to dismiss what I do.
No, I'm not trying to dismiss it. I'm just saying you're burned out on the old ways, the ways that we're doing things here in New Hampshire. You're trying to do something new.
I could never do the things that you do, Ian, as activism.
Well, there's a lot of people who don't do the cop block stuff. There's people that
I could have run for state house here in New Hampshire, and I thought about that. Now, let me think. I want to walk you through what my thought process on that was. Now, I used to live in a town called Westmoreland. Westmoreland is how they pronounce it here. Westmoreland, New Hampshire. And we had, usually people would attend, between 250 and 600 people would attend town meeting. We'd have it in the high school gym, and, that was town meeting. So what my experience in town meeting was that in many cases, there were two cases where my vote would have made a difference. In one case, I was not there, and the vote went through. In the other case, I was there, and the vote didn't go through. So I've had this rare occurrence where my vote actually mattered in both directions. But ladies and gentlemen, you probably haven't. Like, I'm truly a unicorn in this particular way. But
it probably happens more often than you think in little towns.
It's because of the small groups of people, which is basically what New Hampshire House is. There's 400 people there, most of them ideologues who aren't going to change their opinion on anything. And one wonders why you even show up when the vast majority of the votes aren't decided by one person. So I suspect I would have gotten demoralized making that drive of an hour and a half.
I suspect you would have
week after week, month after month, year after year, in order to go there to have my vote be meaningless, and that would be difficult for me. So I kind of dismissed the idea of going through what would be a terrible experience, which is me running for office, because I'm not like your average person. I got a few skeletons in the closet. And when they start talking crap about me, they're going to say really cruel things. And I got a kid. I don't want them to hear that.
Sure. Yeah, I don't blame you for that at all.
So I needed to have some solutions. And you know me, I'm always got this efficiency conversation. I'm really worried about outcomes.
Yeah, and there's no doubt that the thing that we're doing here in New Hampshire is inefficient. I mean, there's no doubt working within the system is a tremendous waste of time. It's incredibly expensive.
Working outside is a waste of time too.
Well, I mean, you can see it however you want, but and this comes back to a comment in our chat room that happened a little earlier. I don't know, about a half an hour ago that I wanted to focus on here briefly, because it sounded similar to something you said off the air, Mark. It's Cynthia in the chat who says the cop blocking is interesting, but it doesn't change police behavior in the least.
I actually disagree with that statement.
I totally disagree with that.
And I say that because, I mean, I've seen police behavior in many states besides this one before moving here. I've seen police behavior outside of, we'll say, Keene, New Hampshire. And I've seen police behavior in Keene, New Hampshire, particularly when cop blocking. Now, I've had the opportunity to do some ad hoc cop blocking. It wasn't like I got together with cop blockers and, okay, we're going to go out tonight, we're doing some cop blocking. No,
it was just on the spot. Something happened.
Yeah, we had this other event where we're all hanging out in the square and it's late at night. And
nightcap.
And you know, lo and behold, a cop pulls somebody over for, I don't know, not having their headlights on or whatever. And the group just all sort of get out your phones and let's go over there. Now, the first time I didn't go. Right, I was fresh here. I was new. I didn't know. You know, I'm like, I don't know.
Were you nervous?
I was, yeah. The second time that happened, it's all the same. And nobody ever says, like, hey, come on, everybody, let's go.
Yeah.
It's just like this organic thing where everybody grabs their phones and, everybody grabs their
pussy.
phones. Nobody, I mean, I look like me, so even if they did, I wouldn't, Anyway, but like, so the second time it happened, I went, but I was kind of, 2-3 people behind everybody, and I had my phone out, and I just kind of watched. And then the third time, I was up in front.
Yeah, sure.
And
progress.
And what I saw was these cops have definitely been trained for this type of interaction. Right? The activists here in Keene, New Hampshire have made such an impact that it appears to me, I don't have any evidence of this, but it appears to me that the Keene Police Department has training specifically for what to do when a whole bunch of people with their cell phones out are videotaping you when you pull somebody over. And their behavior became, I don't know, like I want to say submissive. Right, to the folks doing the cop blocking. They were, yes, sir, no, sir. You asked them a question. Respectful, yeah. Like, what is your name? Can I have your badge number? Any questions that are asked of them. What are you doing here? That person looks ill. Can you get them some water, please? Like, if you're looking out for the welfare of the person that the police have pulled over and that kind of a thing, they all of a sudden, they get concerned about the whereas if there were no video cameras on these people,
different story.
It would be a whole different story the way these guys treat these people.
That's not to say, right, because that's not to say that their behavior changes all the time.
No.
Their behavior changes when the people with the camera show up.
Right.
And that still is a change in behavior. And
I've never seen that anywhere else.
Yeah, and there's more coming up here in moments. The number 603-283-6160. That is the difference a group of dedicated activists can make. Freedom-loving people combined together in the same place. There's more on the way.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, D.C., I'm Benji Haya with your Week in Review. A week in which Americans were told their democracy came dangerously close to catastrophe during the attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6th last year, according to the Congressional Committee investigating the assault. In the second and third of a series of hearings, lawmakers also highlighted what they said was Donald Trump's relentless effort to pressure then Vice President Mike Pence to refuse to count the Electoral College votes and instead declare Mr. Trump the winner of the 2020 election, as his supporters stormed the halls of Congress. In his testimony, Mike Pence's former advisor, Judge Michael Luttig, said doing so would have caused a constitutional crisis.
Had Vice President Pence obeyed the orders from his president, that would have been tantamount to a revolution.
Donald Trump insists the investigation is a pitiful last-ditch effort to deceive the American public. More hearings are expected later this month. Meanwhile, current US President Joe Biden has pledged another $1 billion in military aid to Ukraine, and the UK is promising to train thousands of Ukrainian troops following Prime Minister Boris Johnson's second surprise visit to Kiev for a meeting with President Volodymyr Zelensky, having in April become the first leader of a G7 country to travel to the Ukrainian capital since Russia's invasion. It follows a trip earlier in the week by French President Emmanuel Macron, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi, a move that's paved the way for Ukraine to potentially join the European Union. On Friday, the European Commission officially recommended that Ukraine be granted candidate status to the 27-member bloc. Ira Spitzer has more from Brussels.
Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the EU's executive branch, announced the recommendation that Ukraine be allowed to start the process of becoming part of the EU.
Ukraine has clearly demonstrated the country's aspiration to live up to European values and standards.
The Commission also recommended candidate status for Moldova, who, like Ukraine, applied to join the EU shortly after Russia invaded Ukraine in February. It didn't recommend candidate status, however, for now, to Georgia.
Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has criticized what he calls mad and thoughtless sanctions against his nation imposed following the invasion of Ukraine. He used his address at an economic conference in St. Petersburg to implore Russian businesses to keep working in the country. In other news, UK Home Secretary Priti Patel has approved the extradition of Julian Assange to the United States. The founder of WikiLeaks is wanted by US authorities on espionage charges and has been fighting extradition for years. He has 14 days to appeal the decision. His wife Stella vows to spend every waking hour fighting to free her husband. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, the live Saturday show. The number 603-283-6160, and as always, phones are open here. You can bring up whatever you want. Here tonight, it's Ian,
the Reverend Captain Kickass,
and Mark.
We're talking about activism, different approaches to achieving more freedom in our lifetime. Mark is going off in a direction of, let's find a place, carve out an area in a smaller country with a more impoverished government that might be willing to agree to something, to leave people alone if we pay them enough, and carve out this special economic zone. And that's something that I really hope can happen.
And one of the reasons I went off on this is first I went to Saipan. Now, this journey is much longer than this, but I'm going to
part of the United States.
Yeah, this is the U.S. Marianas. It's just north of Guam, and it's the islands north of Guam.
Mm-hmm.
And there's about 50,000 people there. And I went there pre-COVID, and I declared it the freedom there to be palpable. This place is truly the freest place in the United States, bar none. I mean, it's not even remotely close. But then COVID hits, and they're like, maybe we'll the governor's like, maybe we'll shut down the island with from plane flights.
And now you're a prisoner on the island.
Right? It's like Alcatraz. And I'm like, I got to get off this. I got on the third to last flight out for something like 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't as bad as one could predict. But then to get back, you had to go to 5-star tropical paradise jail.
Yeah, 2-week quarantine in a government-operated facility.
Up to 2 week. It was, it's been as low as 3 days and a variety of things. But they're still experiencing a state of emergency. Experiencing a state of emergency. Well, they love government funds, and so that's part of the issue. But anyway, it's $2,000 at this point. Still, I got there for about $500, but that was pre-COVID, and the flights haven't really picked up in the same way. And it's about $2,000 to get there at this point, and that's not cheap, and people can't handle that, and it takes almost 48 hours. So I felt like I needed to find something where people could, get there and back. And with these Honduran projects that I'm working on, you can leave in the morning and be there in the afternoon.
Right. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying that whatever place you find, you still want to be able to, and I'm going to use my term, gallivant a bit. Right, you want to be able to, if you want to come, stateside for a while, you can, or if you want to go visit somewhere else, you can. But
this
you
is
can easily
an
go back.
influence for me. And Ian loved to chide me at the time. He's all you care about is your freedom. How can you do this? The poor, unfree people. There's all this crap that he says, and I'm like, well. Okay, let's make some options. This is a good idea. I'm a great problem solver. I may be one of the best problem solvers out there, and God's blessed me with some resources. I'm going to go solve some problems. Let's make a place.
But there's no ego
so
there.
humble.
Indeed. and so let's go. And I'm trying to solve the problem. I'm not solving the problem of Mark traveling. I already have that problem solved. I have no expectation that I will spend 50 weeks a year in any one given place. I'm not currently doing that, and I don't intend to do that in the future. Will I live there? Yes, I will consider that my residence because, well, who wouldn't want to live in a free place? And I'm going to make it, and it's going to be awesome. And all you have to do is do like the very small amount of people I've managed to bring to these this place that I'm working on. They fall in love. At this point, I've brought 3 libertarians, and 3 libertarians are planning their move.
Wow, 100% success story.
Right. I'm still batting 1,000. I don't know what's going to happen.
I don't think you can really count until somebody actually moves.
Okay.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Just
people are going to go. I mean,
look,
I think.
And right now they're all coming for Pork Fest.
And
so.
I'm taking the lesson from the Free State Project because the goal was to get 20,000 people.
Yeah, I don't even know if they're till 5,000 yet at this point.
So but like whenever one of these things happens, whenever freedom, because there wasn't just the Free State Project when I was first considering moving. There was one down in Virginia,
Free State, Wyoming.
Yeah, there was that one, and there was another one too that I can't remember. But there were several of these kind of things that are like, no, come here instead. No, check out ours. And they're sort of competing for the freedom-oriented person, which I really enjoyed that part.
They've all failed except for the Free State Project.
Correct.
Well, I would say that the folks in Texas they've come up with another system. So in the Austin area, the Exit and is it Exit
and Build?
Exit and Build. Folks.
That's relatively new. I wasn't aware that they.
But it's
were
a
morph
project from John Bush's previous "Move to Austin, we're free" thing. And so they've got
I don't think anyone ever believed that one. Come on.
I understand, but I think that you can sell the notion that, hey, buy a piece of land, raise some chickens, some rabbits, and a garden.
Yeah, that's more saleable than move to the most leftist city in Texas.
Right, but what he's saying was so that the region around not in fact the city is free, but
so that's what they're doing now. They're pushing the move. I thought Exit and Build was people are moving to somewhere outside of the cities in all of the cities, not just Austin.
That's true, but there's certainly a large concentration of Texans, and John Bush is a very gregarious man.
Sure,
and people
he's a mover and a shaker.
Yeah, he has great speeches, and people want to be near him. So there's a concentration in the Bastrop region, and he was pushing that, and I think that's fine. I don't now I did this too, by the way. All the activism I've tried just to be able to say I've been there. I had 51 pigs, a large garden, raised my son on a farm, and a variety of things. And if the state quaked in its boots when you grew carrots, growing carrots would be illegal. Well, but are you free? Like, this is the thing, was when you advertise, I got a lifestyle and I've got freedom, and somehow they're together. It's like peanut butter and chocolate. Yes, they're two different things, but
yeah, I didn't attend the conference. You were there, so you have a better experience for this. But my understanding of the messaging was, just get out of the cities and you'll have more freedom. That was kind of the messaging there. And if you can be with other people and as your neighbors who are like-minded, then all the better. I didn't hear that it was going to be you're going to be totally free, because obviously there's still things like property taxes and bureaucrats.
Imagine thinking that cities would make you free during the last 3 years.
Yeah, right.
And in so many ways, I feel like I escaped from Seattle in the nick of time. In the nick of time. I was having that thought again the other day, thinking back on the last 3 or so years that I've been here, and I was just like amazed that
did you guys adopt any of the insanity of the COVID times? Because I remember,
no, of course not.
Hold on just a second. Let me tell you some of the things that we did down in Florida. My family did down in Florida. So first off, it was like, well, what are we going to remember? We had an 80-year-old in the house, so there was some concern surrounding that. But we were leaving like non-perishable groceries in the garage for 3 days in order to let the virus die on them or whatever.
Oh, man.
People were doing this all across the country. But people are going, listening to their radios. Another one, we'd go walking all the time. I never stayed from outside. But my wife wouldn't let me pick up garbage on the side of the road, which is my
the thing you do to be a good neighbor.
I bring a garbage bag. I often bring those grocery bags, and I'll fill them with things that I find on the side of the road. And
I'll answer your question. I think I know what you're getting at. I did things like I took advantage of everybody who was offering the no-touch delivery. because I'm a little bit of an antisocial guy. I can be social, very much so, and I can be but also I don't like dealing with morons, right? So when I order a pizza, I don't want to have to talk to the kid, right, who barely can like function, much less like hold an intelligent conversation. And so I was very happy to be like, oh, you mean I don't have to actually answer the door and I can just tip virtually?
See, I did the opposite.
I was happy about that particular item. Now, what else did I do? I was closing on the house that I live in now, and nobody knew what to do. This was early on in the COVID thing, and it took almost 4 months to close. Nobody was wearing masks. Nobody was, sanitizing. We were wearing gloves, right? The hospital gloves, the black ones, the ones that the mechanics wear, right? The black, gloves, And in fact, it was requested when we came and saw the place. Because it's a multifamily, that each of them were like, hey, I can't be, we had to go twice, inspector had to come out twice so that, they could be home and all that kind of stuff. So it was an ordeal, but I only wore gloves.
Yeah, I did the opposite. I went out more often. I was out every single day going out and buying food from local businesses to make sure that they stayed in business.
Yes.
And
I did some of that, but also took advantage of,
And there was one time when I actually I never get food delivered, but there was one thing I got a free meal from Uber Eats or whatever, and so I said, I'll tip you more if you show up with no mask on. And when we went down to Connecticut where they're really mask crazy, I did the same thing with Uber because Uber had a mask mandate. I said, you'll get a bigger tip if you don't care about masks. There's more coming up here in moments, and that worked, by the way.
Nice.
More coming up here. It's Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live.
Who is playing dress up as a
superhero?
Ninja.
A border ninja.
See, that would be the problem. Somebody else would dress up like a pirate, and then there would be a war.
Yeah, just the pirates duking it out.
Wait, well, now what do the pirates have against ninjas?
Oh, ninjas and pirates are like matter and antimatter. They can't be together.
Okay.
I have a feeling the ninjas would just whoop it up on the pirates.
Are you kidding? Pirates, man.
Oh, the pirates do have cannons. They have the long-range attack ability, but once you get in close...
It's hard to be tougher than a pirate, though.
The pirates are certainly tough, but the agility I don't think is there.
Lose a hand, lose a leg, you can still get 200 people to be afraid of you as you stomp around with half of your, an eye patch, one hand, one leg. You stomp around half a person, and you're still commanding 200 people.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless Crime Spree.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better, too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. Moments remain here. Maybe enough time for you if you dial in now at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. The thing we didn't get to tonight, we intended to, but I just want to finish the briefing here on what happened with Julian Assange.
Oh, yeah.
So, the WikiLeaks founder has been awaiting extradition in the UK for a number of years. And now the British Home Office, according to the Washington Post, has said in a statement that, quote, the UK courts have not found that it would be oppressive, unjust, or an abusive process to extradite Mr. Assange, nor have they found that extradition would be incompatible with his human rights, including his right to a fair trial and to freedom of expression, unquote. Priti Patel, the British Home Secretary, signed the extradition order. This is the top bureaucrat, basically, in Great Britain that people have been begging for weeks, if not months, to release Julian Assange. There have been public protests. There have been letter-writing campaigns. She's been tagged, or he, I don't know, Pretty's a female name? I have no idea. That person has been tagged on social media. There's been so much that has been sent that person's way about this incident, and they went ahead and ruled in favor of the state, ruled in favor of the U.S. government, and they are going to move to the next step. Now, in the case of Julian Assange, the next step would be, of course, to appeal the decision of said British Home Secretary Priti Patel, and that will be where they go next. I'm not sure if they're going straight to the Supreme Court or back up to one of the higher courts there, but ultimately he's going to go all the way and appeal this as far as possible. But man, it's hard to be optimistic in this particular case.
For committing acts of journalism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For telling the truth.
Really wish that they would be treated fairly, but God, I just can't hold hope out after all this time. I don't know why Julian Assange got caught up in the machinations of the state, but once you're in, it's really difficult to get out.
Well, and here's the thing that I think needs to be pointed out again and again and again and again. There is no state stepping up for this man.
No. And why would there be?
Well,
no, what state wants to go against the United States of America?
Well, and even including the United States of America.
Well, they're trying to capture him. They want him in prison for the rest of his life.
And I'm saying that there are a number of people inside of the United States of America whom falsely believe that in a situation like this, that the United States of America would step up for them.
Oh, yeah. Well, the difference is here, he told the truth about the United States federal government committing murder through their agents in the U.S. military, killing innocent people. Just one example, right? Like, he's released a ton of things. I don't even know half of what happened, but I did see the video of the helicopter footage where these troops or whatever, I don't know if it was Air Force or military or whatever branch it was, but blowing away journalists and innocent people from a helicopter. And he revealed that footage, and that's one of the reasons they're trying to put him away for the rest of his life. For telling the truth about murder.
Here's a man who revealed a crime to the, we'll call them citizens of the United States of America, that their own government was committing and continues to commit.
Yeah, sure.
Right. It should have opened some eyes. It should have. Okay, it did, but it should have had more of an impact and been more of an agent of change than it currently is, in my opinion. If people in the United States of America really believe that this is supposed to be the land of the free and the home of the brave, I don't see anybody acting as if they're free, and I sure as hell don't see any bravery.
No, that time has long been past in the United States.
I really wish that during that whole lockdown in the what was it, Ecuadorian embassy there in Great Britain, that somehow he just snuck out and got on a plane.
He was being monitored 24/7.
Well,
that was one of the
but how well? That's the thing, is
I mean, they're
make
bureaucrats,
mistakes.
so obviously they might be lazy and falling asleep on
They
the
got
job.
latex masks. There's a whole bunch of things that could have been done to get him out of there.
And just to circle this back a minute to when I was saying, like, not only do I want to be free, but I want other people to be free as well. If you want some organization to step up and fight for you when you're caught up in the machinations of the state, then you need to do the same thing for others. Because otherwise, nobody's going to be there for you.
Well, I'm not sure anybody's going to be there for you anyway. Like, if you go and do the fighting, mostly people are not going to be brave for you, because it's just not. We're just not that kind of monkey. And I mean,
that's true, but that's not a reason not to stand up for other people.
Well, what I believe that you stood up personally, Ian. I'm talking about the case against you currently by the federal government for. I'm not sure even what I would say that you might have done that was illegal, but
I like the way nobody puts it: contempt of bank.
Contempt of bank.
That's what he's been convicted of.
That's very that's accurate.
The real charge.
Yeah.
Right. So you're charged for contempt of bank, and basically no one can do anything to help you. If there was a thing that could be done, it's likely I would have done it by now. And that.
Oh, they can do things.
Mostly
I think
they don't. Well, what can they do?
Talk about the case, put the word out about it,
help you get interviews,
share information about it, and show up. I mean, if you can come to the federal court when we have trial in early November in
thecrypto6.com gives you some information. You can go there and watch a few videos and figure out what happened. Thecrypto6.com.
Yeah, let's go to your calls and thoughts. Jack is in Washington State. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead, Jack.
Good conversation. I typically, with secession, I agree with Mark. I have in the past. But he's off on an island off Honduras, which is not a very healthy government for its history. How are you going to build a society based on that? So I believe...
Well, I don't know about building a society, and I'm not intending to do that. I'm talking about building a community, which is a smaller thing.
Mofo makes a lot better points.
What's that?
To be appropriate. Mofo.
Hey, thanks, man. Thanks for using my pronoun.
Yeah, I want to use your pronouns.
And what point is it?
But I wanted to, actually, my call was real quick. Elon Musk in SpaceX, there was 5 employees, if I'm remembering right, and they were circulating a memo throughout the company of, just anti-Elon Musk stuff, whatever it be, conservatism or Twitter situation. And you know what Elon Musk did? Which reminds me of the first conversation of the show. He fired him. He just fired him.
Yeah, well, why would you want to have people working for you who don't appreciate your vision or whatever? It's one thing to not surround yourself with yes men. It's another thing to get rid of people that are actively causing strife.
Mofo, you are so correct. It is awesome.
Thanks, man.
Mofo and right. Thanks for the call, man. Appreciate it. Let's talk to Sarah. She's in New Mexico. Go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, yes. So the captured soldiers, he's being brainwashed. So
the captured soldiers where?
Well, the ones that American soldiers captured by the Russians, they were on RT, and they're not announcing what.
How are you getting
saying.
RT?
Well, I mean, I heard it on the news
so it's hearsay.
You hear him talking, but then they won't let him what he's saying to you because he's basically saying what I'm saying, that the Russians are fighting for Social Security and Medicaid and and get the capitalists out and have a fair and equal society. That's the brainwashing.
So you're saying the American soldiers who have ostensibly been captured are brainwashed?
Well, that's what they're claiming, that they're brainwashed. And
that's
so
what who is claiming?
On TV, the U.S. media.
Okay.
Sarah, can you go through and restate everything without using a single pronoun? I'm really bad at pronouns, and I just don't know what is being said here. First off, I don't know which American soldiers have been captured. Have we? Are there?
There are apparently 2, according to RT, as she pointed out here. I remember seeing the headline, but I didn't dig into it, so I appreciate you bringing it up here, Sarah. You bring up some interesting stuff sometimes. They've told RT that they surrendered to Russian forces after being abandoned by the Ukrainian commanders. The pair told veterans like them to, quote-unquote, think twice before making the trip to Ukraine. So what she's alleging here is that the mainstream media, and thank you, Sarah, for the call, is, of course, saying, oh, well, these guys, they got a gun to their head. They're being told to say these things.
Yes.
Just like when ISIS had that guy, John, whatever his name was, Cantley.
Yeah.
And he was, telling them whatever it was the ISIS wanted him to say. And that may be what's happening here. But they may also be telling part of the truth, right? Like maybe they really were abandoned by the Ukrainian commanders. Who knows what? The thing is, we don't know what actually happens out there. We have no idea. We know what the Western media says. They'll say whatever the government tells them to say. And we know what the RT media says. They say whatever their government seems to tell them to say. But all that said, the RT's the one that's being censored all around the planet, so I tend to think that they might have something interesting worth reading. You should check them out over at RT.com, and I'll put the link over on our social.freetalklive.com for you to dig through at your leisure. We'll see you tomorrow night. Free Talk Live.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correia, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com.
There are basically 2 types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793